Hello. Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Whew. Today, let me do it. Mike. Guess what day it is? It's hump day. Hi, you guys. Good morning. What a morning already. Who even knows who is going to be testifying today? I don't. I have no idea who will be testifying today. So we're all going to find out together. Won't that be fun? Hang on, let me get this YouTube thingy set up right quick. Give me just one momentito, por favor. Okay. Hi, Jody is cool. Good morning. Good morning, Chick Tracy. Good to see you. Sam, how you doing, babe? Good morning. Shamida, Sugar Beet. Good morning. Hello. So glad to see you guys. You like it, Sam? I wanted to do something a little more, exciting because this is the final week. I think the trial is scheduled to end Friday. I believe. I think that's correct. Excuse me. So yeah, this is it. This is, we're all waiting. Oh wait, hold on. That's not what I want. We're all waiting to see how this ends. I am very, very curious how this is all going to end and what the outcome is going to be. And will today be the day that they put Miss Kate Moss on the stand? Because hey, Amelia Sparkles, good morning. I forgot what I was going to say. We got to is today going to be the day that Kate Moss testifies? I'm very curious about that. If she testifies, will Elaine lose her whole mind? I'm curious about that. There's part of me that wants to feel empathy. I do feel some empathy for Elaine because this was going to be a difficult case no matter what, right? There's public perception, and then I think a lot has been, I think too much emphasis has been put on the public perception, to be quite frank. I actually think that, yeah, it does play a part, but let me tell you how you can sway public perception. You can sway public perception by evidence. And there will always be people always that hold, no matter what the evidence shows, they're gonna see what they see. You know what I mean? That's just the way it goes. It is what it is. But but the majority of public perception changes once there's new evidence. Most people change their mind. And the truth of the matter is that at this point, quite frankly, they have not put on any it's not that they've not put any evidence on, and it's not but the evidence that they have shown just is not compelling. And it's like really late in the game. And I just don't see with the amount of time that they have left how they're going to be able to prove their case. And you know how I normally go to the Independent for whatever reason? They're not showing that they're going to be live with this trial. Hold on a minute. Let me see. I really don't want to do Law and Crime or Court TV. Let's see. Let me see. They're usually they're a little more delayed than the other channels. So I'll just keep refreshing to see. I can't imagine that they're not gonna cover it. I think they are. They just ended a live, so I'll just keep refreshing, keep my eye on it. You want me to try that? All right, let me try that. All right, that's who I'll go with. All right. Okay. Oh, she is Shmita? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we'll see. So I was thinking about this with the Kate Moss thing. If I don't know how to do this because I have to take a break at least to get some, like I do some stuff in the morning before I come live. And then usually what I do is do the other stuff that I got to get done during the day, like in the afternoon. And then I come live at night. But I don't know. I'll have to think about it because I don't know how I want to, how I want to do it. Let me try the Independent again, just to be sure. I really like streaming them. But Sky News does have a stream set, so we'll see. I know they're gonna have it. I'm just gonna have to keep refreshing, I think. I'll just do Sky News, forget it. I'm not gonna keep playing around with this. Oops. I wanna get right to it. I'll give them a subscribe too. That's only fair. All right, they are live. Let me come over here and share the screen for you guys. Hey, Rachel, good morning. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it by ear. That's what I'm going to do. We'll see how it goes, and I'll make adjustments accordingly. Hey, Cement Shoes, good morning, good morning.
Good, all right. All right, good. Let me know. I will let you know.
Oh, they got the T-Rexes out there this morning. Hey, Ellie79. Oh, let's see who this is, I think. Is this Johnny? Oh, no.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, that's okay. Hi, good morning. How are you? Hello. Good morning. I know.
Every morning they boo her. Can you imagine? I can't. Especially because this feed is this how they do it every morning. First they show Amber Heard coming in, and then they show Johnny Depp coming in. All right, here we go. It's time. Let me turn this up because this. Oh Lord, Elaine, what are you doing with that outfit? Mr. Depp, you're looking dapper this morning, sir. Cement Shoes. I'm done with you already. I am 16 minutes and 17 seconds into the stream, and I'm already done with you for today. Oh my goodness. Davy Crockett. What is it? King of the Wild Frontier. I want this to go away. I used to be able to make it go away before. Let me make it go away. Hold on. There we go. I don't like that little red line. I don't know why. I just don't. Well, I have to say, hey, Sarah, I have to say, okay, just generally speaking, right? I'm sorry, Cement Shoes. I'm sorry, but you put it, look, you said Davy Crockett, and my brain immediately went to song lyrics. I've been very open, upfront, and honest with everyone that of all that I have 11 billion tabs in my brain open at one time, always. And 11 billion of them are filled with song lyrics. It's just how I roll. Generally speaking, I do like the color lilac, right? It's a pretty color. The problem is I'm not a fan of putting lilac with all black. And it doesn't project professionalism, especially what I've noticed about Johnny Depp's team is that they must have some kind of phone tree system going on because they pretty much coordinate with each other. Everybody looks, similar sitting at the plaintiff's tables. Now, but Amber Heard's team doesn't do that. And see, the thing is that you can tell. How do I phrase this? When you coordinate your colors like that, it projects not just professionalism, but it also projects teamwork. It gives the impression that everybody is on the same page, that there is unity. And when you have everybody It's like that Sesame Street song. One of these kids is doing his own thing. One of these kids is not the same. That's what it looks like. It's like ragtag. Everybody is doing whatever they want and they're not presenting a united front. And that's just the truth. Human beings are human beings. And everybody is unique in their own way. Barney taught us that everyone is special, blah, 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 right? I'm not arguing that everybody is special and everybody is unique. However, there are things about human beings that are universal, and the way that people perceive a team. That's why in team sports, we have uniforms. We don't have everybody out there wearing their own outfit. Hey, Mex 2002, and this is why. That's all I can say. Get it together, Elaine and team. I don't know who the quarterback is for Team Herd, but get it together. That's all I know. That's all I can say. Hey, Nonstop Mom. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, we're going to have lots of sidebars today, apparently. All right. We're starting off already. Yes, that's exactly what she needs. Hi, I've learned a lot. Thanks for coming in and listening and joining us while you get ready for work. I hope you have a great day. And if that's too much pressure, just have whatever kind of day you're going to have. But I hope it's good. Oh, I got to get comfortable. I can't get comfortable today. I don't know what's going on. And it's hot here in the Floridas. May is upon us. We did have like they're what, in the second row. I think that after the situation with Eve Barlow, okay, I believe that there was an adjustment made in the gallery, and oops, that's not the one I wanted to highlight. I wanted to highlight this one. That they made an adjustment to the seating arrangements in the gallery, and if you look, um, really on both sides, the first row behind each side is rather sparse with people. So, and I think that is, yes, I did see that, Allie. I did. He was done and he had to go. Listen, I can't really blame him. I feel like that's how I would be, but it had something to do with the situation with Eve Barlow. It changed the seating arrangements in the, where you beaching it up at, Nonstop Mom? What beach you at? I mean, you don't have to say if you don't want to. Like, you can be vague about it, like East Coast, West Coast, the South, whatever you want to do. However, nothing if you feel like it. You don't have to tell if you don't want to. Um. Hey, Welsh Pam, how you doing, babe? Good morning. Good to see you. Wonder what Johnny's drawing today. I kind of want to have a segment of that. Like, I want a little song. Well, hello, my name is Johnny, and I like to do drawings. Remember that little cartoon? Inside a pinwheel. Ooh, gorgeous nonstop mom. You know, I haven't been to the beach in 5 ever. And the thing is it's sad because I'm an Aquarius, you know, I'm a water baby, love the beach. But you know what I don't love? I don't love the tourists. I just don't. Because, okay, if you're a tourist at a beach, please don't feed the seagulls. They're a nuisance, and there's a reason they're called sky rats. Because what happens is it's really doing them a disservice too. I know people think they're helping them out, but here's what happens. What ends up happening is they become reliant on getting fed by people at the beach, and they become very, very aggressive. And what they end up doing is picking on the weakest in our herds, which are the children, like toddlers. I've seen seagulls come and snatch stuff out of toddlers' hands. Okay, so yeah, so let's not they're nuisances, you know. And I love, I mean, I okay, here's the thing. I like the seagulls because I like the noises that they make and stuff like that. But the thing is that they get when they're at the when on the beach seagulls and not beach. I mean, they all end up at the beach at some point anyway. But when they're not at the beach, they're like fun to watch. When they're at the beach, they just have the roots. They have zero manners. They be snatching food out of little children's hands. It's a whole thing. But I do like the fact that the way that they were portrayed in Finding Nemo, because that is how they are. Mine, 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 mine. That's absolutely how they behave. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to get too much more lectury, but they become a nuisance. Bless their little hearts. And it's not their fault. You can't really blame them. I mean, you know, it's a learned behavior. But yeah. What is happening at the sidebar? Are beverages being served? Is there gelato? What's happening? I need to know. I see Mr. Rottenborn. I see Camille. I see Mr. Oh, there's Elaine. I didn't see her at first. Ooh, mimosas. Wait a minute. Wait one cotton picking moment. How are seagulls your state bird? Were there just no birds left and you guys drew the short straw? How did that happen? Oh, speaking of Utah, this just came into my mind. So there's a couple of you know how I do the Where Whatever Happened To series. So there's a couple of cases that I'm working on for that series, and it's because I was inspired by the Hulus. So one of them is Candy Montgomery, and then the other one is the case that's based on the book Under the Banner of Heaven. It's about a mom and her toddler being red rummed in the Mormon community. And I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. I've been really busy with the Johnny Depp trial, and I mean, I have to have time in my schedule for just plain olds mucking around, you know what I'm saying? And, so but I'm gonna get back to that, don't you guys worry. And also, while we're just sitting here kicking it, um, if you guys have any suggestions for the next trial you think that we should cover, um, and to talk about over here, because after the Johnny Depp trial, we're gonna have a hole in our schedule. So let me see what Florida's state bird is, because I don't even know. Northern mockingbird is the Florida state bird, and I should know this about Texas, but I don't. Wait a minute. The mockingbird is the Texas state bird. What? All right, so in true Texas fashion, the 1927 legislation declaring the northern mockingbird the state's official bird reasoned that the species is, quote, a fighter for the protection of his home, falling if need be in its defense like any true Texan. You want me to cover the Robert Durst trial? Cement shoes. Really? Right, you got okay, that's a good suggestion. I'm not gonna, I mean, I wanna cover it, but also yep, now that song's in my head. Immediately, I went right for that as soon as the word mockingbird came out of my mouth. Mockingbird. Yeah. I'm sure you guys are all enjoying my singing. Oh, I didn't know that. I like this. I love it. I love it. I don't but how can Florida and how can two states share the same bird? That doesn't seem right. Is that normal? Okay. So here's what the has to say. The official state bird of Florida is the mockingbird. It was officially adopted on April 23rd, 1927 by legislature because of its amazing vocal abilities. The mockingbird can mimic many different types of birds, animals, and sometimes mechanical sounds. The male bird's songs are louder than the female bird. Oh, here's some other in a bit of news. The osprey is also being considered as a replacement for the mockingbird as the Florida state bird. Huh. That was November 5th of 2021. And I'm curious why why the flamingo isn't all right, let me hit up the Googles and I will find out. Let's see. Pennsylvania. Here we go. The ruffed grouse. Oh, I didn't want to click that. Yep, that's it. The ruffed grouse. Grouse. Sorry, I'm looking at 37 things at the same time. So I don't know it's a kind of a cute little bird. It looks like kind of like a quail a little bit.
Are we ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Bring the jury in. We could cover that one too, if you want, if you guys think so, Shmita. Maybe I'll head over to the old community page and post a poll for you guys. What do you think? I could do that. I suppose it could be, I think it'd be interesting to cover that trial just because of the outcome. I know everybody was very, very shocked about by the outcome, and so of course, that would be a good one to cover. I have on my
morning,
welcome
ladies and
mat, I have the flamingo.
Please proceed to the next witness.
Good morning, Your Honor. Mr. Depp calls Kate Moss to the stand.
Boom! She done started out
She
early.
will be appearing on your screen.
All right, ma'am, can you hear me? Yes, can you count to 5 for me?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Thank you, ma'am. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Moss, or I should say, good afternoon, your time. My name is Ben Chu from the firm of Brown Rudnick. Would you please state your full name for the record?
Kate Moss.
Ms. Moss, where do you reside?
London, England.
From where are you testifying today, Ms. Moss?
Gloucestershire, England.
Ms. Moss, do you know Johnny Depp?
Yes, I do.
New phone, who
How do
dis?
you know Mr. Depp?
I had a relationship with him.
Did there come a time when you and Mr. Depp had a romantic relationship?
Yes.
For how long, Ms. Moss, were you and Mr. Depp a romantic couple?
From 1993 to 1994 to 1998.
Ms. Moss, did there come a time when you, while you and Mr. Depp were a couple, that the two of you took a vacation together to the Golden Eye Resort in Jamaica?
Yes.
What, if anything, happened when you were in Jamaica with Mr. Depp?
We were leaving the room and Johnny left the room before I did, and there had been a rainstorm, and as I left the room I slid down the stairs and I hurt my back.
How did you...
And
I apologize, Ms. Moss, please continue.
And I screamed because I was because I didn't know what had happened to me and I was in pain, and he came running back to help me and carried me to my room and got me medical attention.
Did Mr. Depp push you in any way down the stairs?
No.
During the course of your relationship, did he ever push you down any stairs?
No, he never pushed me, kicked me, or threw me down any stairs.
Ms. Moss, have you ever before today testified in any kind of court proceeding?
No, I have never.
Why did you decide to testify today?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right.
That's beyond the scope of what we just talked about.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. We have nothing further at this time. We greatly appreciate your taking the time to testify.
All right, any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you're free to go. Thank you, Ms. Moss.
Wow,
Thank you
that's
very
that.
much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, hang on, you guys.
Your next witness. Your Honor, we're calling Dr. Shannon Curry.
Oh, dun dun
Just give us a moment
dun.
to move the TV.
Wowie, wow, wow.
All right, Dr. Curry.
Yes, they are cement shoes. They are indeed almost out of time.
Good morning, Mr. Dennison.
Good morning, Your Honor. Plaintiff called Shannon Curry, Dr.
Yeah.
Shannon Curry.
That's fine, ma'am. You're still under oath, so please have a seat, doctor.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Curry.
Good morning.
Can you remind the jury who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Dr. Shannon Curry. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist, and I'm here today to rebut the testimony that was provided by Dr. Hughes.
Excuse me.
Which of the opinions rendered by Dr. Hughes do you intend to rebut?
So generally speaking, there are three main categories that I'd like to talk about today. So the first is that Dr. Hughes misrepresented the tests and the results that she utilized in her evaluation. She misrepresented my testing and the results that I obtained in my evaluation. And she communicated in a manner, provided testimony in a manner that presented essentially her own opinions and the self-report of Ms. Heard as facts.
Okay, the first category you talked about was misrepresentation of her own test methods and results. What do you mean by that?
So Dr. Hughes she stated that she administered 12 tests. In actuality, she used 8 checklists. About half of those were symptom checklists. The other half were checklists about experiences that people can have with domestic violence. And those are not appropriate for forensic settings. They are easily exploited.
Other issues that you intend to address relative to misrepresentation of own results?
Yes, so in addition to using these checklist measures, which are easily exploited in a forensic
Yvonne
context,
Smith.
they're developed for research or treatment only. She also stated that these checklists revealed things that they simply cannot reveal, especially in this context. Let's see. She also misrepresented information, clear indications on several of the objective measures that she offered. And there were indications visible that Ms. Heard had essentially engaged in what we call response distortion. So clear indications of exaggeration on one of the measures that's specific to PTSD, clear minimization of symptoms, intentional, on another more broad personality and psychopathology based measure that she gave to Ms. Heard, which she did not acknowledge.
Did you intend to address anything relative to the CAPS-5?
I did. So Dr. Hughes administered the CAPS-5 about 10 days after I did, almost 2 years after she initially tested Ms. Heard. And she did not administer the test appropriately. So she left major components blank. She didn't apply the scoring rules that are clearly outlined with the test. And yet she diagnosed Ms. Heard with PTSD based on that assessment.
What about Dr. Hughes's use of the personality assessment inventory?
So of the tests that Dr. Hughes administered, 2 would be considered, of those 12, 2 would be considered what we call forensically relevant instruments, meaning that they're objective enough and they provide us with some information about how the examinee approached the test, that it would be appropriate for this setting where the examinee is going to have a natural incentive to present themselves in a way that benefits the outcome of their case. Now, on the PAI, there were clear indications that Ms. Heard was responding and obtained scores in a manner that's consistent with individuals who have a personality disorder. And there was also an indication that several scales, we call this a configuration. So you might have one main scale that you notice is elevated, then you look for additional subscale information to get additional information on what could be elevating that scale. And there was a configuration that showed that even though Ms. Heard had moderately elevated one of the scales that can be associated with trauma, that elevation is better explained by childhood or distant traumatic experiences like the complex trauma Ms. Heard reported experiencing growing up.
Okay. You said that Dr. Hughes utilized checklists that are not appropriate for forensic analysis. Can you
Yes.
explain that?
Yes, so as I said, in any sort of forensic context, whether it's a civil or a criminal matter, a person who's being evaluated is going to have major incentive to present in a way that benefits the outcome of their case. So you always approach the examination, I believe Dr. Hughes said, with a healthy dose of skepticism, but that alone is not enough. We have to operationalize that. So we actually have to administer very comprehensive objective tests that either control for attempts to manipulate the test results or reveal attempts to manipulate the test results, so that we're not just blindly accepting the results or the self-report of the examinee.
How many tests were administered by Dr. Hughes?
She said that she administered 12 tests.
She
How
engages
many of
with the
them,
jury in a
were
well.
appropriate for forensic physical examination?
So the trauma symptom inventory is appropriate. It's an objective measure, and it does have 2 primary scales that look at how the person approached the test. The personality assessment inventory is an excellent test. It is a broadband measure, meaning that it captures not only symptoms of mental illness, but also general personality traits. That also gives us pretty detailed scales similar to that one test I administered, the MMPI, that tell us a lot of nuanced information about the way the person approached the test. She also administered a malingering screen that can be very, very useful, but not in this context. So it's called the Miller Forensic Assessment Symptom Test. It's a brief set of questions that you ask the examinee, and it's been shown by research to be extremely effective at identifying an examinee's attempts to fake a severe mental illness or psychosis. And psychosis is when somebody loses complete connection with reality. It's excellent for that purpose. It's actually been shown in the research to not be effective at all for identifying a respondent's attempts to fake PTSD, anxiety, or mood disorders. The questions are just too odd for somebody who has the wherewithal to be trying to have PTSD to endorse. They see through it. So she used that. That's a fine test, but not appropriate for this context.
Of the various tests that she administered, how many were these checklists?
8 of them.
All right, and what are you talking about specifically?
Okay. So I had mentioned that there were 2 main categories of checklists she used. The first is the symptom checklists. Those included the Beck Depression Inventory. It's a brief inventory of items that essentially show all of the symptoms of depression that a person might have, and you rate which level of severity you have for each question. She also gave the Beck anxiety inventory, very similar, but just with questions about anxiety. She gave the mood disorder questionnaire, which is a very brief, again, checklist. It shows symptoms of bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder where you might have an extended manic episode and then a very extended depressive episode. And then she gave the post-traumatic stress disorder checklist, and that is a screening instrument only. It contains every single symptom of PTSD. So there's a secondary danger here too. When you think about it, given that PTSD is the most frequently feigned and claimed diagnosis in civil courts, if you're handing somebody a checklist that lists every single symptom of PTSD, you're essentially teaching them all the little nuances that we're looking for to give that diagnosis. So she gave that to Ms. Heard. Ms. Heard endorsed most of the items, and Dr. Hughes diagnosed her with PTSD and substantiated that opinion by Ms. Heard's checking those items on the PCL-5.
Were there another group of checklists that Dr. Hughes used?
Yes, so she also, and I forgot one on the last because I don't think of it as one, but previously I'd explained, and I do not expect you to remember, it's called the life events checklist, which is just an inventory of experiences a person may have gone through that are traumatic. Dr. Hughes also used that, and that's appropriate to use before the clinician administered PTSD scale, the gold standard CAPS-5. However, she administered this long ago before she gave the CAPS-5. Now that going on to the second group, there were 3 checklists that she gave that are specific to abuse. And the first she gave, the danger assessment scale, was actually developed for use by nursing staff in an emergency room setting, specifically for female victims of intimate partner violence. The purpose of this is important because our forensic ethics, our psychology ethics talk a lot about relevance. Is the test relevant to the purpose? And the danger assessment scale, its initial purpose is completely different. This was developed to show high risk factors for dangerousness and pretty much to help a female who is in an extremely abusive partnership, who is in the emergency room with extreme injuries, to stop rationalizing, because if she has to check off all the things that have happened that year that have been dangerous, does he own a gun? Has he, I won't go into all of them, but the more she checks off, the more likely it is that she might realize that she is in imminent danger and then accept resources offered by the hospital and social work to protect her. That was the purpose of this scale. It was never intended to be used as a retrospective measure to look back in time and find out whether abuse was occurring based on one person's report years later in a litigation. She also gave the conflict tactics scale revised, the second edition. Similarly, this scale was developed for research purposes, to research family violence. Again, there's no control for exaggeration or minimizing. It was just given to research participants anonymously so that we could get data on the prevalence of abuse and how abusive dynamics work. And on that, there's 39 questions where the respondent indicates essentially certain abusive behaviors they may have engaged in, and then 39 where they indicate behaviors their partner might have engaged in. And obviously you can understand that in a forensic setting, the respondent is likely to put a very minimal amount of behaviors they engaged in, and then extremely increase the number of behaviors their partner might have. And then lastly, let's see, the abusive behaviors observation checklist was the third checklist she gave. This one has not, there's no known research even on its effectiveness for what it was developed. It's a theoretical, very brief checklist that was meant to be used for therapy, where an individual who had experienced domestic violence could essentially read through some of the behaviors that constitute violence that they might not have been aware of. And if those behaviors applied to them, or if some of those coping strategies were ones they utilized, they would check that off. And then they have a way to talk about it because now it's been put to words. Again, this is similarly problematic. If you're in a civil litigation, the person's motivated to have their results be consistent with a claim or an allegation of intimate partner violence and an allegation that they've been severely harmed, then they could simply just check off more. And not only that, but checklists like this one specifically give a lot of nuanced information about what clinicians might be looking for when they're assessing whether violence was present or whether the person's self-report is consistent with a genuine self-report of having been victimized. They're given all that information that we might be looking for.
Can you talk specifically about Dr. Hughes's use of I think you called it the PCL5?
Yes. So the PCL5 is the post-traumatic stress disorder checklist. This is different, not to be confused with the CAPS-5, which I've talked about previously as being the gold standard. The PCL5 was developed by the National Center of PTSD. It's intended for treatment. So if I were, for instance, working with a service member who I know had been in combat, I would probably give this as a standard with my intake. Before we do the diagnostic interview, it kind of gives me a read on how somebody who's there for treatment.
Elaine is doing the kid from A Christmas Story where he dropped all the lug nuts from the tire. Yeah, she's doing the whole right about this moment.
Who we assume can be taken at their word because if they give us correct information, they're going to get an appropriate treatment. And if they give us incorrect, they might not get the treatment they need. So I would give this checklist to them. And then if they recognize some of those symptoms of PTSD, they could check it off. And that would probably indicate to me that I need to then do the next step. If they're checking off more items than not, I would probably decide to administer the clinician administered PTSD scale, that gold standard interview, to find out more about a diagnosis.
The last thing is what everybody refers to as the CAPS-5.
Yes, the CAPS-5.
All right. What about, well, you talked about forensic use. What do you mean by that?
So when I'm talking about forensic evaluation, that's an evaluation that isn't done for therapy or treatment. It's specifically to assist the fact finder, to assist the judge or the jury in the court by providing information about the psychological status about an individual. And that's an important delineation too. We are not psychologists. I wish we were mind readers. I wish we had a crystal ball and could find out whether intimate partner violence occurred and look back in the past. But it's nothing like that. Really, it's a lot less interesting. We look at data. We have to control for those response biases. And then we also are looking at functioning, which is really the bottom line of the assessment. Did the person have a change in functioning from before the alleged trauma, or in this case, the alleged IPV, to after? Is there a decline in the way they're going about their lives?
Objection, Your Honor, may we approach?
All right.
Hold on a second. I'm going to cough. I'm curious as to what the objection is regarding. And this is, let me tell you why I feel that this testimony is extremely problematic for Miss Heard. So the actual things that Dr. Curry is speaking about are problematic just on its face, because obviously she is directly rebutting and refuting not just the results of the testing, but that the tests themselves, some of them were not appropriate in this type of setting, which that's very, very damaging. But it's not just that. What's actually added on to the damage, in my opinion anyway, is the fact that the jury, the way that Dr. Curry engages the jury is problematic for Amber Heard because or her side and her personally, I suppose, because she's engaging to the jury. But more than that, the way that she explains what she's saying is in a way that is very, very easy for anybody and everybody to understand. And I think that I mean, I just cannot overstate the importance of when you have an expert witness on the stand. It's you there's multiple components to that. You have to have somebody obviously who knows what they're talking about, knows what they're doing, right? That's the first part of it, right? But the second part of having expert witness testimony is that the witness has got to be able to testify in a manner that the information they're testifying to is easily understood by the jury. They're the fact finders in this case. It doesn't matter if anybody else in the courtroom understands or not. It has to be the jury has to understand. And that in my opinion, I feel that at every turn, Amber Heard's expert witnesses are just not able to do that. And that's
Dr.
unfortunate.
Curry, let's look back at some of those domestic violence checklists that you were talking about.
Okay.
And did you see any problem with the use of those?
Yes.
What problems did you see?
Well, Doctor, first of all, they shouldn't be used. So we do have professional standards that require that we utilize instruments that are relevant and appropriate for the particular setting, and that we substantiate our opinions based on data that is reliable from tested, accurate, reliable tests for the purpose. So there's that. It's inconsistent with the ethics. And essentially, they just shouldn't be used. They don't provide us with the robust information that it would be expected in such a high stakes setting.
Would you have expected Dr. Hughes to comment on the limitations of the checklist she was using?
Yes. So first of all, Dr. Hughes provided opinions based on these checklists. So she referenced especially the danger assessment scale several times throughout her testimony, stating that Ms. Heard was in a very dangerous situation. We also have an ethical guideline and a professional standard as well that indicate that whenever there is question about the reliability and the validity, and in psychology, we use the term validity to talk about accuracy of any of the methods that we're using to collect data, we clearly communicate not only that there are limitations to our opinions, but we also need to provide the fact finder with information about what the potential implications or impact could actually be. So for instance, if we use a scale that's idiosyncratic for the purpose, but we would first need to explain why we made that decision to not follow standard procedures. And then we would need to explain the use of this scale might introduce some potential exaggeration of this symptom. And so I'm trying to control for that way. That was one of the limitations of my opinion. You have to make it very clear. Transparency is really at the center of good science in general.
Hey, Nacho Mama. Good morning. Good to see you.
You talked a little bit about ignoring response distortion. What is response distortion?
Response distortion is a term that speaks generally about an examinee approaching a test and providing answers that are either exaggerated or minimized, but in some way an inaccurate representation of their current mental status or their experience.
What test do you believe that Dr. Hughes failed to acknowledge response distortion on?
So she administered the personality assessment inventory, which is similar to the test I gave the MMPI-2. It's that general broadband measure of psychopathology symptoms and personality traits. It includes several scales that are very good at detecting either exaggeration, minimization, or even trying to claim that you have unusually good qualities. On that test, there were clear indicators that Ms. Heard, very similar to the way she approached my MMPI, engaged in defensiveness. And in fact, there's a function that you can look at. So you have that main scale elevation, we call it positive impression management, was elevated. And then, because we want to make sure that somebody isn't elevating that scale just because they have such well-being, there are additional configurations of scales that you can look at to find out what's going on. And so the Cashel discriminant function is sort of the name of one of these configurations, these equations that are done. And
Hey,
she
Tony,
was
good morning. Good
highly
to see
elevated on
you.
that. In fact, that elevation tells you that no, this isn't accidental. This isn't because she's just doing so well in life that she has an extremely, extremely low amount of problems. No, this is an intentional over-reporting, or I'm sorry, an intentional effort to minimize any appearance of having problems.
Who
Now,
knew
you may
that
have
Tony
addressed
was
this,
a
but there was a reference
debutante?
to malingering.
Yes. So what's interesting about Ms. Heard's approach to different tests is that it seems to be
So not your mama, not your mama. This is Dr. Curry. She is a clinical forensic psychologist. She testified she's testifying for Johnny Depp's side. She testified early on in the trial. She has administered many, many tests to Miss Amber Heard, and she has diagnosed Amber Heard with having histrionic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, and said she does not fit the criteria for PTSD. And essentially, then after all that happened, then of course Amber Heard had her own psychologist on the stand, Dr. Hughes, who said that she doesn't have borderline personality disorder. She doesn't have histrionic personality disorder, and she does have PTSD, and she is the victim of IPV, which is intimate partner violence. And basically, Dr. Curry is now back on the stand as a rebuttal witness to rebut Dr. Hughes' testimony. Okay.
influenced by what we call the face validity of questions on the test. So if a test looks like it's measuring PTSD, you see exaggeration on her validity scales. If the test has less face valid questions, for instance, the personality assessment, which Dr. Hughes administered, the MMPI-2, which I administered, where she can't quite figure out what the questions are asking, they seem really banal in general. On those, you see extreme defensiveness, minimization of any potential pathology, essentially presenting herself as perfect and free of any mental
You're very
illness or
welcome, not
personality
your
disorder.
mama.
But on the trauma symptom inventory, which Dr. Hughes administered, that was the one that I previously indicated for ease of explanation. When the test results come out for how the person approaches the test, that test itself prints it as a percentage. And there's a really excellent scale for finding out if a person is exaggerating their symptoms of PTSD. It's called the Atypical Response Scale. And the TSI-2 is the revised version of this test, and that scale was improved this time around to really try to be a clean indication of, is this person exaggerating? And it puts quite high questions in the test that are so unusual. They might sound like PTSD, but even the most severe cases of PTSD don't have these symptoms. And so somebody who's intentionally trying to exaggerate PTSD, or possibly unintentionally, but nonetheless, who's exaggerating it, is likely to endorse these items, even though they're not real PTSD symptoms. Ms. Heard scored so highly on this that even if there is, although Dr. Hughes correctly said, there tends to be a negative skew when people have the high levels of distress that's associated with PTSD. So sometimes people score higher on this even when they do have PTSD. She scored so high that that is effectively ruled out as a possibility.
Okay. What about Dr. Hughes's administration and use of the CAPS-5?
Okay, yes. So Dr. Hughes had diagnosed Ms. Heard with PTSD back in 2019 when she began testing her. It wasn't till 2 years later, more than 2 years later, 10 days after I administered the CAPS-5 with Ms. Heard, that Dr. Hughes held an impromptu evaluation session remotely with Ms. Heard and administered the CAPS-5. She had previously diagnosed PTSD without using what we consider to be the gold standard PTSD diagnostic interview.
Wow.
And again, when we're doing a forensic evaluation, it is an important responsibility, and part of our ethics and professional standards are that we document everything to allow for transparency and full judicial scrutiny. And Dr. Hughes administered incorrectly. She left huge sections, very relevant sections blank. There's no way to understand why she scored it as high as she did based on the information that's provided. You're essentially supposed to notate the examinee's responses as verbatim as possible to explain your reasoning and implying their scoring procedure. It's
Right.
a standardized
Allie,
test.
I
And
wish
if
we
you don't
could.
follow those standard
too.
procedures, it's completely invalid. Not only that, but it looks as though Dr. Hughes further invalidated it by trying to show that she had assessed for the childhood trauma impact. And she had said that she went back and asked the childhood question, but you can't do that. If you're assessing for two separate periods of one's life to find out the relatedness to PTSD, you do two separate CAPS interviews, period.
Yes,
You
sugar
don't
beet.
create your own question system. That is non-standard administration of the test, and
Good
it
morning, mi
invalidates it.
amor, Michelle.
All right.
Unlike
You
Superman,
also
whose S
mentioned
whose S
with
stands for
respect to
hope.
the
It's a
PAI,
river.
Personality Assessment Inventory, that Dr. Hughes failed to mention some elements. What she failed to mention?
Oh, okay. So on the personality assessment inventory, so first she failed to mention that were clear indications of response distortion. She also failed to mention that Ms. Heard scored in her score profile against their main scores. She did elevate a score for the borderline personality disorder sort of section. But that
Yikes
in and
on
of
all the
itself would not
bikes.
indicate a diagnosis. However, the configuration of her scores overall is consistent with that. And in fact, it's one of the diagnostic suggestions given by the test itself. And then also there's a configuration around Ms. Heard's trauma responses on that particular test, which demonstrates that it is more likely that those symptoms were reported in relation to something in the distant childhood. It's more consistent with childhood chronic abuse than present circumstances or recent circumstances.
Okay, I think you said in addition to the issues with her own testing, Dr. Hughes misrepresented your results.
She did.
Can you tell us how?
Yes,
So,
tell
well,
us.
I would say the main issue was that she said that Ms. Heard obtained a normal profile on my MMPI-2.
All right. How do you disagree with Dr. Hughes relative to the profile?
Okay, so the profile was not normal. So Ms. Heard already had subtle elevations just by the test by itself as it came out. There were subtle elevations, but they were elevations that if the validity scales hadn't been as elevated as they were, you might have said this person has some traits, but this isn't necessarily at the level of a true pathology.
When
However,
I was in middle
Ms.
school,
Heard
Tony,
elevated
I
a
went to
scale
charm school.
that essentially is a defensiveness scale on this test. And when you're giving this test, you always are mindful of different norms or groups who may have similar profiles. And there are certain groups of litigants who tend to elevate this scale as well. So I had that in mind. However, Ms. Heard elevated this so much that it was far beyond the mean for the litigants that are known to have the highest levels of this scale, this defensiveness
Wow,
scale.
she really
And
excels
when
at
this scale
lying.
is elevated to the level that it is, you automatically understand that it is very likely that those clinical scales, I keep doing this because I'm seeing it in my head. It looks like sort of an ECT. It's sort of these peaks you see on a graph. And when you see these peaks and you have this huge peak over here for the defensiveness scale, what you know is that these peaks are artificially, they've been lowered or suppressed based on the respondent being so defensive. They still detected what's likely there for her, but it's not as high as it should be. So you make an adjustment. And the recommendation is that anything at 60 or above, we call it a T-score of 60 or above, is considered significant. Ms. Heard's were already over 60. Some were quite higher than that. And then you see a very clear profile. And that was how I got that. I had mentioned a 3-6 code type. Now, the test does its own correction also for some of the scores, but not the ones that are her main code type. With the test correction, she had a 1-3-6 code type, which is very similar.
I mean, they
What is
can't
a
get,
3-6 code type?
they'd have
3-6
to.
code type is
And they
something
certainly
that has
can't
been
get
researched
the,
and found to be highly
Doc
correlated or
Brown up
probabilistic
there.
of certain behavioral tendencies and personality traits. And the traits with a 3-6 code type tend to be marked by a lot of externalization of blame, a lot of denial about one's own personal faults, intentional or not intentional, but just extreme denial, hostility that is strongly controlled and suppressed. The person may not even realize how hostile they are, but family members, those closest to them, are very likely to report that they lose their temper, and when they lose their temper, it explodes. We have sort of what we call a cookbook for these code types, which will provide you with all the information that's been researched to be associated with them. And our cookbook actually states that that 3-6 profile specifically tends to be associated with cruel and ruthless behavior, particularly to those who they perceive as less powerful than them and subordinates.
Oh my
Describe to the
goodness.
jury the review process that you went through relative to the MMPI.
So I conducted a very methodical analysis.
How many
of the scores.
questions
I
do you
this for
think
every
Elaine's
test, and I
going to have
also did
about
it when I was
muffins again?
reviewing Dr. Hughes's scores. So what you haven't seen that's in Discovery is that I created a 25-page outline just of her scores with, and it's sort of a table. So I'll put the score, I'll do it in sections so that I can understand different groupings, different research studies. And I start with looking at all the validity scales. So I put in the score, and I'll even color the table to show me if it's kind of in the high zone, moderate zone, or low. And then if it's low, is it a significant low score, or is it just low so it doesn't mean anything? And then in the right side, I put all the research data that I found on this particular scale score. And so I start with the validity scales, the way the person approached the test.
So
Then I go
thorough.
down
Love it.
to essentially, we call these the first factors. So
Bruh, look at Amber's
overall
face.
sense of well-being and how well they cope. On this, actually, Ms. Heard's, she endorsed scores or endorsed items that were the opposite of PTSD. So really saying that she feels free of distress and that she views herself very well. So then I go down to control, self-control, loss of control, coping abilities, and I put in the scores that are associated with that in the research and the test development. Then I go down to clinical and personality pathology, and I look at all the scores that are significant there, first with the top level main scores, then with all of the different sub-scores, again, citing the research, the meaning, the level of elevation, and what that means. And then I do comparison with different research groups. So for Ms. Heard, I did a section that looked at all sorts of different scores that have been implicated with a PTSD presentation to see if any of those were consistent. I can't remember how
I want to
many
say
there were.
something
I think
really
I
quick.
put 13 on there.
Okay, as she's running through her breakdown and the way that she put it together and all of that, all I keep thinking about is the questions from Elaine about how essentially Dr. Curry was excited about evaluating Amber Heard, and she was so excited about it that she spilled the beans to her husband, basically implying that Dr. Curry doesn't know what she's talking about, doesn't have any level of professionalism, probably isn't educated in the manner that she claims that she is, and essentially just completely trying to impeach her entire testimony because on the basis of she just wanted to be part of this trial, essentially for her 15 minutes of fame. And yet, I don't know anybody that would be this thorough for their 15 minutes of fame, as it were. Again, another example of the way that you would want the type of expert witness that you would want to hire for your case. But please continue, Miss Curry, because we're all Dr. Curry, excuse me, because we're all living for this.
There, but I could be wrong. But I believe that there was only one that could even be, in some research, is sometimes associated with it, but it was general anxiety, which turned out to be more trait specific. I looked at the scores that are typical of women with IPV. Hers were not consistent at all with those. I looked at the scores that were consistent with people who are frequently in litigation. Hers actually were very highly correlated with those. That tends to be also consistent with a 3-6 code type. And the reason for that is believed to be that they tend to perceive themselves often as victims who need to avenge wrongs.
Were there other results you believe Dr. Hughes to have misrepresented?
That's a good point about the avenging.
Yes.
Perhaps Amber should
Dr.
audition
Hughes
for the Avengers to be
generally
the
said that
She-Hulk.
testing supported PTSD.
That might be good for her.
And that there was an etiology for her trauma of intimate partner violence. She did reference that essentially I can't remember if she said that the trauma symptom inventory indicated PTSD, but she did say that the elevation on that validity scale is consistent with PTSD, and that's simply not true. That scale was designed and has been tested and shown to be there to show when somebody is endorsing extremely unusual items that are not consistent with PTSD. And even though when some people are experiencing PTSD, their distress level is so high that they'll engage in what we call a cry for help, and they may sometimes exaggerate distress. Again, when you're looking at scores as high as Ms. Heard's, and then you're not seeing indications of PTSD in the more subtle tests where she doesn't know what she's endorsing, it's good evidence that her over-endorsement on that one test is because of the reason the scale was made, to detect exaggeration and feigning of symptoms.
Is this the test that resulted in the 98 percentile
Yes.
score?
Yes, on that score, on that atypical response scale.
And what does that 98 percentile score represent?
So that 98th percentile score just represents that among 98% of people who take that test would not have endorsed. She scored more of those unusual items that are not consistent with PTSD than 98% of people who have ever taken that test.
Does that relate to this concept you talked about before, feigning?
Yes.
What is feigning again?
Well, feigning is essentially exaggerating symptoms of a disorder.
Lying.
I think the third thing you indicated you were going to talk about was self-reports and personal opinion as facts. What are you talking about there?
So in any science and in psychology specifically, it's really important that we use precise language and we say what we mean, and we do not present opinions as facts, because when you are in the role of an expert witness or an expert in any setting, essentially a layperson may not be able to detect the difference between something that is a personal opinion that you're giving versus something that is substantiated by research data, test data, reliable test methods. So our ethics talk about, especially the specialty guidelines of forensic psychology, the responsibility we have to distinguish between data, then inferences we're making from that data, what the data can mean, sort of like those tables I do. I put the data, the inferences based on the research, and then what my ultimate opinion is, integrating all of that data. And it's very important that we clarify that to the fact finder, to the judge, the jury. That's our responsibility, that we do not cloak personal opinions or the self-report of an examinee as an expert fact or somehow scientifically based when it is just a personal opinion or self-report of an examinee.
What do you mean by self-report?
The self-report is essentially what the examinee tells you during the interview.
Okay. When did Dr. Hughes do this most?
She did this most when describing instances of alleged IPV. And there's also an issue there because one of our ethics also discusses the importance of relevance and withholding, essentially constraining our testimony.
Not just
to the
lied, but
data
scored
and not
98%,
including private
scored higher than
information, personal
98% of
information
the
that
people who
unnecessarily
took the
compromises
test.
the dignity of
Whew.
any of the litigants. She provided a lot of what was Ms. Heard's report to her, the allegations of abuse, when describing Mr. Depp, who she had not examined, when describing Mr. Depp's behavior, his motivations. I believe she used the word obsessive jealousy quite a few times, talked about Ms. Heard being in a highly dangerous situation. These are simply things that we cannot detect based on testing and a psychological evaluation. We have to evaluate the person. We have to get consent. And we can only describe an individual, not whether or not IPV has occurred. And we certainly shouldn't go into explicit details about sexual encounters or other things that are highly prejudicial, shocking, and hard to forget.
Dr. Hughes says that Ms. Heard has PTSD. Do you agree?
I do not.
Why not?
The results of my multi-method comprehensive evaluation based on carefully selected, researched, relevant test instruments, based on comparing those instruments to Ms. Heard's self-report, observing Ms. Heard's behavior over 12 direct hours of assessment, reviewing copious notes from prior therapists who indicated symptoms in their notes, reviewing the notes of Nurse Validity, previously Nurse Borum, who spent, I believe at one point, almost 2 months with Ms. Heard daily, reviewing the notes of her treating providers, all of the legal documents and discovery. There was no evidence of PTSD.
How is evidence of PTSD generally exhibited?
So really the bottom line in a forensic psychological evaluation is a change in functioning. That's what we're looking for. Again, I said, we don't have a crystal ball. We're not wizards. We can't get into somebody's head. What we're looking for were there identifiable changes in the way the person engaged in their world. Were they able to keep a job? PTSD is an extremely disabling diagnosis. When a person has true PTSD, it is difficult for them to work. You'll see unemployment, job loss. It causes extreme levels of distress and impairment. There's divorce, there's isolation and estrangement from children, from family members, extreme alcohol abuse, often a string of sudden DUIs when the person never had any before. They become homebound, they can't go to the store. They're certainly not going to events.
Like Coachella.
They're not having success in their film career, usually. They're not exercising every day, pursuing their hobbies, being avid readers, obtaining level 3 sommelier training, having dinner parties with friends, speaking to public groups. Those are just indications of very high functioning. And when you're looking for a decrease in functioning over time, that is inconsistent with that decrease.
What about Dr. Hughes' suggestion that Mr. Waldman's statements served as a trigger for Ms. Heard's PTSD?
All right.
I mean, okay. I mean, here's the deal. At the end of the day, right? I think what Dr. Curry is about to say is, well, I mean, if you don't have PTSD, then how can you have a trigger? But again, this is a question, and I know Elaine wants to keep it out, but Elaine, the jury needs to hear about Dr. Curry's evaluation and opinion on this specific subject, because this is the crux of your defamation counterclaim, ma'am, your clients rather. So it's important for Dr. Curry to be able to rebut the testimony by Dr. Hughes and give her own opinion based on research, testing, data, all the things that she just listed that I'm not going to list, in order to reach a conclusion. I don't think that Elaine is going to win this objection, but let's see.
Dr. Hughes had suggested that perhaps Ms. Heard's PTSD was somehow triggered. What's your view on that?
She didn't obviously win.
I would say that it can't be triggered if PTSD isn't present.
Look at Jen Lou.
All right.
Maybe I am a wizard.
Dr. Curry, I just want to make sure that we all remember, you're not board certified, correct?
Here
No,
we
I'm
go.
Okay, and you've been licensed for how long?
I've been licensed for 10 years.
Okay, and you are being paid by Mr. Depp's legal team to be here, correct?
Yes,
How much have you charged so far?
I actually don't know.
Over 100,000?
I truly don't know. I don't do my own books.
Over 200,000?
I truly don't
I
know.
don't know.
Over 300,000?
That would be way too much, but I do not know.
Okay. Now, just so that we all remember, you had dinner at Mr. Depp's house
Oh,
for 3 to 4 hours with Mr. Depp, Mr. Waldman, Mr. Chu, and Ms. Vasquez, correct?
I was interviewed. I asked if there was anything I could eat because at about 3 hours I started to get hungry. Mr. Depp then offered to order takeout for the entire team.
So you had dinner at Mr. Depp's home with Mr. Waldman, Mr. Chu, Ms. Vasquez, and Mr. Depp, correct?
Yes,
And you had drinks as well, correct?
I actually don't know. I do remember that there were drinks.
Do you recall testifying earlier that you did have a drink, a mule something?
No, I remember testifying that there might have been a mule, a Moscow mule.
Okay, thank you. We didn't have animals there as well, right?
No animals.
Okay, that's good to know.
Mhm.
And you talked about transparency. I just want to make sure you had several designations, expert designations and reports in this case, correct?
Yes,
And in not one of them did you disclose that you had dinner and drinks at Mr. Depp's house for 3 to 4 hours with Mr. Waldman, Mr. Chu, and Ms. Vasquez. Is that
Elaine,
correct?
why
Ms.
don't you
Bradhoff,
attack
you're mischaracterizing what
the
occurred.
results?
Dr. Curry, please answer the question. Not once did you disclose this in any of your
I
reports,
did not
correct?
disclose that I was interviewed as that standard procedure.
But it's true that you have never gone to a client's house to be interviewed for an expert witness position, correct?
Yes, because I never had a client that was essentially homebound because of their celebrity status.
All right. And you talked to Mr. Depp for 3 to 4 hours before taking on the role of assessing Ms. Heard and deciding whether she was suffering from any distress, correct?
I did not talk to Mr. Depp. I was talking to his legal team and he was there to observe.
he was present for the 3 to 4
Yes.
hours. And are you saying now he just stayed silent and said nothing all day?
I don't recall what he didn't or didn't do. I was answering questions.
Okay. Now, your expertise here is limited to whether Amber Heard suffers from PTSD currently. Is that correct?
Yes, I was
Okay.
tasked with conducting an evaluation to
Okay,
determine
Dr.
Ms.
Curry,
Heard's mental
you know, we're all on
status.
very, very strict time limitations
Okay.
because we promised to get this case to the jury. So I'd really appreciate if you just answer my question rather than trying to go further.
Sure.
Okay? Thank you very much. Now, after you had the dinner, you then provided a designation in February of 2021 in which you said, and this is long before you ever saw Amber Heard, correct? You said that Amber Heard, quote, exhibits patterns of behavior that are consistent with co-occurring cluster B personality disorder traits, especially borderline personality disorder, end of quote, correct?
No,
Thank
No,
you.
We went through this before,
we did.
but, and that was on the designation, was it not?
It was on
I
a
told you last
designation
time
not
that I did
authored
not
by
write
her.
that.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And you don't know who did on the legal team, correct?
No,
Okay. And then I also asked you, if you may recall, whether you listened to the audio recording in which Mr. Depp taunted Amber Heard that she had a borderline personality disorder. Do you recall that?
I recall you asking me that, yes.
Did you recall listening to that audio tape?
I don't recall Mr. Depp taunting Ms. Heard. I do recall that he at some point suggested she might have that diagnosis.
Okay. And that was back in these audio tapes back when they were together, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Now, you've never before been asked to testify or serve as an expert with respect to someone who has bipolar disorder, correct?
no, as I previously stated, that's not true.
All right. My extra copies were all distributed before. Does everybody have those?
Not up here anymore.
Okay. My apologies, but I'm going to go ahead.
Your Honor, can we approach?
All right.
I cannot believe that Elaine is going down the dadgum dinner muffin Moscow Mule road again. See, I think, and I'm glad, kind of a low key. I'm not. I mean, I guess I can't be shocked. But since she did go down the road, let's discuss. So, in the cross examination on Dr. Curry's direct examination testimony, she was asked about this dinner, and there was some back and forth between Dr. Curry and Elaine. I think it's interesting to note that the way that Elaine is attempting to frame this as if this was a dinner/interview set up by Johnny Depp and his team, right? But with this rebuttal testimony, we've learned now that it is
Now,
that
you
he
recall
ordered
testifying in
takeout.
your deposition on March 21, 2022.
So it wasn't
correct?
dinner and drinks in the
Yes,
way
And
that
you were
she
under
implied.
Oath at that time, correct?
Implied.
Yes.
And the question I just showed you on page 207, line 5, have you ever been asked to testify or serve as an expert with respect to whether someone has bipolar disorder? And your answer at that time was no, correct?
Yes, I had forgotten that case.
Okay. And have you ever been asked to testify whether anyone has behavioral or characterological conduct that suggests they may be an IPV perpetrator?
I can't, yeah, I may have. It's difficult after about 250 cases. It's difficult to remember specifically.
All right. And have you ever been qualified as an expert in the area of IPV?
No,
And have you ever been qualified to testify as an expert in domestic abuse or violence?
domestic.
Abuse or violence?
Yes, that's been a component of testimony.
All right.
Blessed Elaine.
Line 16 of page 207, have you ever been qualified as an expert in the area of IPV? Your answer on line 20 was no, under oath, correct? Then the next question, have you ever been qualified to testify as an expert in domestic abuse or violence? That and goes into page 208, line 4. The answer then under oath was no. Now, you would agree that the literature is quite clear that trauma-based symptoms such as PTSD or complex PTSD have symptoms that overlap with borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder.
Girl.
Yes,
Okay, and you would agree that it's important to use valid and reliable measures for an accurate diagnosis, correct?
absolutely.
Okay. You chose, however, not to administer the structured clinical interview for DSM-5 personality disorders, the SKID. Is that correct?
I did.
Okay. And would you agree that that is a state-of-the-art structured clinical interview?
Not for a forensic evaluation with a sophisticated examinee.
But to determine if a personality disorder is present? you
No,
would use
not
it.
in this setting.
You don't agree with that?
I do not.
And you don't agree that that is the gold standard assessment for reliable, accurate psychiatric diagnosis?
It's a good one, but for treatment settings especially.
Okay.
Not this
Now,
type of
did Ms. Hurd,
situation.
You said you talked about, you read all of the treatment records, right?
Yes,
Okay. Do you recall reading the treatment records for the psychologist Bonnie Jacobs, who saw Amber Heard over 5 years?
I do.
And did you see anything in Bonnie Jacobs' notes over 5 years in which she diagnosed Ms. Heard with borderline personality or histrionic personality disorder?
No,
Now, you also saw the notes of Dr. Connell Cohen, correct?
Mhm.
And you even attended his deposition, correct?
yes,
All right. And he saw Amber for roughly 2 years. He was part of the Dr. Kipper connection,
Mhm.
right?
Amber, if this is an
Right,
attempt at
okay.
appearing
And did
demure, you have failed,
see
ma'am.
Anything in Dr. Cowan's notes? And did he say in his deposition that he diagnosed Amber Heard with borderline personality disorder or histrionic personality disorder?
I saw the symptoms clearly delineated throughout his notes and in his deposition. He does not use diagnoses, so he would not have diagnosed her.
He said specifically in his deposition, he did not diagnose her with that, correct?
Yes, and he also specifically stated that he does not use diagnoses.
All right. And you also have seen Dr. Banks.
Bye, I've
Dr.
learned
Amy
a lot.
Banks,
Thanks for coming
psychiatrist,
in.
Her deposition, correct?
Yes.
And
Have a
did-
great
all right,
Not
day.
her deposition. I reviewed her notes in the transcript.
All right. Did Dr. Anderson diagnose Ms. Heard with borderline personality disorder or histrionic personality disorder?
I don't believe she provided any diagnosis since she was a couples therapist.
All right.
Boom.
Now, you've said quite a bit about Don Hughes, but do you remember?
Amber,
how
I
many
know you
years
think you're
of
winning, you're not.
experience Don Hughes has in IPV and domestic abuse and violence?
I know it's quite a bit.
Extensive, and she is board certified, correct?
Yes, she is.
All right, and she spent 29 hours of examination with Amber Heard, did she not?
Yes, mostly
Okay.
interviewing.
All right, and she interviewed her therapists, Bonnie Jacobs and Conan Cowell, correct?
Yes,
And she also interviewed Amber's late mother,
yes,
okay, and she administered 12 different tests over the period of that time, correct?
well, as I said, the majority of those were checklists, which are inappropriate for the forensic setting.
I understand, that's what you say, but she administered 12 different tests, correct?
If you want to qualify them as tests, sure.
Okay, and so you disregard, no, I'm not even gonna say that. Okay, let's go to the CAPS 5 and PTSD.
That's a
Now,
good
you
job,
assessed
Elaine. Way to
Ms. Heard's
exercise your
traumas in
strengths.
For life, correct?
Yes, I did
Okay.
give her an instrument to assess for any trauma exposure throughout the entire lifespan.
Yes, it's fine. And you wrote that Ms. Heard's exposure to a traumatic event, namely one of the sexual assaults by Mr. Depp, more than satisfied this requirement. Did you not write that in your notes?
That is not what I wrote in my notes. Do you have my notes? So we
And
can
you
look at them?
administered a structured clinical interview based on that trauma, correct?
Not exactly. It's not quite right.
Okay. Now, Dr. Hughes administered a full intimate partner violence assessment, correct?
That's not a psychological assessment. We can't assess for intimate partner violence. That's an event.
Dr. Hughes administered a full intimate partner violence assessment,
She-
She
correct?
stated that, and that's actually something I'm rebutting today.
Okay.
It's
and
not
you
accurate.
reviewed her psychological testing.
I
correct?
sure did, yes.
Okay.
I'll
and
be right
are
back, you
aware
guys.
That in September 2019, Ms. Heard had a trauma-based symptom on many of those valid tests?
Can you be a little bit more specific? Many of those
Do you-
valid tests, which tests are you talking
Do
about?
you have a recollection of that, September 2019?
She administered all of her testing in September 2019, so I'm not sure which one, oh, except for the CAPS 5, which was 10 days after mine in 2021.
Now, Dr. Hughes clinically evaluated those symptoms and established that Ms. Heard does have PTSD from the totality of the intimate partner violence by Mr. Depp, correct?
That's what she stated, yes.
Okay. Now, Dr. Anderson's clinical notes that said Amber had come to.
Objection, hearsay.
I haven't even asked the question yet, Your Honor.
Are you going to read her notes?
Well, no, actually, I wasn't going to read her notes. I was
Okay.
going to ask a particular question.
Okay.
You talked about danger. Do you recall that in your testimony?
Yes,
All right. Now, if a patient comes to you as a couples therapist
Mhm.
with two black eyes, would you assess that there may be a potential danger there?
sure.
Okay. Did you read Dr. Anderson's notes?
I believe I did.
Now, you administered the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory 2, the MMPI-2. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And you used that to determine whether Amber had PTSD, right?
not by itself, but it was a part of the data.
Okay. And in the 60 to 70 T-score range for that test, which, quote, deliberate attempts to mislead are uncommon, end quote. Isn't that correct?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
In the T-score
Mhm.
section of
Mhm.
that, for which assesses deliberate attempts to mislead. Do you recall? She scored a 60 on that test, correct?
So there are multiple T-scores for each scale, so I'm not sure which scale you're talking about.
Okay. Well, we can deal with that later. So you would agree that you need to follow ethics and best practices in forensic psychology, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And the two primary sources are the American Psychological Association Ethical Principles and Professional Code of Conduct, right?
Mhm.
And the American Psychological Association's Specialty Guidelines for Forensic Psychology, correct?
yes,
And Specialty Guidelines 1.02 states that forensic practitioners, quote, strive for accuracy, impartiality, fairness, and independence, correct?
yes,
Okay. And Specialty Guidelines 1.03 states that you have to avoid a conflict of interest, correct?
yes.
Now, in addition to not listing the 4 hours you spent with Mr. Depp, Mr. Waldman, Mr. Chu, and Ms. Vasquez, you also did not list that you spent an hour with Dr. Shah, correct?
That's incorrect.
You say that the designation said that you spent
During
an
my
hour-
deposition, I also clarified this. I didn't spend an hour with Dr. Shaw. There was an introduction with the attorneys present on Zoom. My time on that call was less than 30 minutes.
Okay. But you still didn't disclose it, did you, in your reports?
No,
Okay. Now, you have not been asked to testify about Ms. Heard's behavior in the context of her relationship with Mr. Depp. Is that correct?
I was asked to testify about somebody's behavioral mental status in general, so that can include behavior involved in a relationship with Mr. Depp, but not specifically.
Can you pull up date 10 of the trial testimony at page 2710? Are you able to do that, Michelle? 2710, lines 12 through 18.
May we approach?
All right. All right.
Thank you, Michelle. Great job. Okay, does the witness also have, okay.
Yep.
So, Dr. Curry, this is your testimony from day 10 in this case. And if you can look at page 2710, line 13. Now, my question was, now, is it your testimony under oath today that you have not been asked to testify concerning Ms. Heard's behavior in the context of her relationship with Mr. Depp, including any abuse? And your answer under oath to this jury that day was, that's correct.
Yes,
Correct?
I
Okay.
still agree with that question.
All right. And you have not made any determinations, including any opinions, that Ms. Heard abused Mr. Depp or Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in fact, you said that's outside the scope.
Yes,
right? Okay.
of psychology.
And you cannot testify whether Amber Heard suffered any emotional distress as a result of any of the defamatory comments that she has alleged Mr. Waldman made through Mr. Depp, or Mr. Depp made through Mr. Waldman, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Do you want me to read my response?
What's the
Sure.
objection? I'm
What
sorry.
I-
Hold on, Dr.
Sorry,
Curry.
Your Honor.
That's okay. Oh, what's the objection? You want approach? Okay.
I would object on that question as well, because again, for the 11th billionth time, it's already been ruled that the jury is
Now,
going to be the one who
You have not
determines
rendered any opinion as
if
to
those
whether
statements
Amber
were made
Heard
on behalf of
exhibits
Mr.
patterns of behavior that would suggest her
Waldman. I
allegations
mean,
of
Miss
abuse
by
against
Mr. Waldman on
Depp are false.
behalf
Would
of
you
Depp.
agree?
No,
Sorry.
I mean, yes, I would agree with that.
Thank you. And you have not, no, that's right. That's all I've got. No
Yeah,
further
just
questions.
stop
All
where
right,
you're
we will.
at. Just wasteful, Elaine.
You were asked about the skid.
Yes.
What's that?
It's a structured clinical interview. It's for rendering a diagnosis. It's best for treatment because you're asking direct questions of the examinee and about symptoms. So if you have an examinee who has a tendency to minimize, you're not going to get much information.
Why didn't you use it?
Because, well, first of all, I had a limited amount of time for my evaluation, and I had already had to use, just to complete the interview was extremely time consuming. And I had to even restructure it into handouts so that I could keep Ms. Heard on track. I determined based on that, so this is where you would make an inference. So because I was having difficulty getting direct answers to my questions from Ms. Heard, I had determined that creating forms of those questions would be a better use of the time, which it was. And then I further deduced that adding on the structured clinical interview would probably be unproductive, given that I had limited time and needed to use the best, most reliable methods for getting information in that time.
You were asked about the APA specialty.
Oh, so you
guidelines,
were
Yes.
efficient.
Specifically 1.02 and
Yes.
1.03.
Mhm.
Have you complied with them?
I have.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Curry, you can have a seat in the courtroom.
you,
You're
Your
free to
Honor.
go. Thank you, ma'am.
Honestly, Sarah, I don't understand it at all. And I find it highly prejudicial and frankly infuriating that it's being allowed time and
Let's go ahead
time
and take our
again.
morning recess for 15 minutes. Do not discuss the case and do not do any outside research.
Everybody do a shot. No, just kidding. Don't do that. Or do it if you want to. It's up to you. No pressure. Again, and I cannot stress this enough, I don't understand what Amber Heard's team is doing, wasting time. Why did you ask about the dadgum dinner? That didn't work out well for you at all, Elaine. Are we back to, okay, I'll tell you. Do you know the Muffin Man? I mean, are we back to that again for reals? It didn't work out for you because Dr. Curry added an additional bit of information that makes the dinner, as you're alleging, even less conspiratorial, inappropriate, as you've alleged. Now it was takeout. Like Johnny Depp didn't even have staff prepare a formal sit down dinner, for Pete's sake, the way that you hoped he had. He ordered some Uber Eats, for Pete's sake, or some, I don't want to just be picky. Maybe he ordered pizza and they delivered it from Domino's or Pizza Hut or Mr. Jim's or any of the 11 billion pizza delivery services there are. Maybe he used DoorDash. I don't know. But for Pete's sake, I wouldn't, you know what, Amelia? I wouldn't even go as far as to say it was a catered meeting, because catering would apply planning ahead. They had a meeting. It ran long. Dr. Curry got hungry and snacks were not provided. Dinner was provided. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is redonkulous. And this is how you choose to use your time. And also I would like to say this. So a well-funded team is obviously more advantageous than an underfunded team. However, I have seen teams who are in a David and Goliath situation, meaning they're the either, well, I mean, both ways. Either they are the petitioner or they are the respondent, and they are out. I mean, just exactly what a David and Goliath situation implies. And yet they have been able to rally and use the resources, as limited as they are, efficiently and win. And again, that's the issue here, right? Isn't it? That they were given, and even Elaine made reference to it during her cross-examination of Dr. Curry today. And she said, we're trying, we're on a limited time scale. Meanwhile, 10 minutes later, she's over here looking through documents and flipping pages. See, the thing is that the better use of your time last night, Elaine, would have been to prepare your questioning for Dr. Hurd or for Dr. Curry, and contingency plans, if then but clauses, right? So that you would have them at the ready. Obviously, nobody in the courtroom is a wizard. I clearly am, since I was able to say what Dr. Curry's response was going to be to that one specific question. Obviously, I belong in Hogwarts. I'm waiting for my owl to deliver my letter. And I'm pretty sure the Sorting Hat is going to put me in Slytherin, just so you guys know. I might come across as a Gryffindor, but I'm pretty much a Slytherin. Every test I've taken indicates that. And I wasn't malingering when I was taking the test, or feigning. I just answered honestly. Anyway, I digress. I don't even remember what I was talking about now. I mean, this is just an utter waste of. Okay, a contingency plan. That's what I was talking about. Yes, she should have been better prepared, because this is not the cross-examination of direct testimony. This is cross-examination of rebuttal testimony. So you should have some general idea about what her answers are going to be. Especially if you're going to ask about the dinner, which nobody cares about, Elaine. Only you care about the dinner. And you're going to then also ask about testimony previously given. That should be at the ready, ma'am. Hey, dissociative state. Good morning. You're a wizard, Jen Lou. Good morning, babe. How are you? Oh, you guys, it's too much. Hey, anaphylaxis. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, if you guys haven't done so already while we're on this break, a much needed break. Oh, hey, guess what? I realized I'm behind. Let me put it at 2 times normal speed so we can catch up. If you guys haven't done so already while we're waiting for us to catch up with the court, would you do your girl a favor and give me either a thumbs up or a thumbs down? I don't judge either one. That's exactly. See, this is what this is all about. Learning, education, right? So we're watching a situation occur, right? Where there's testimony about signs and, hey, recliner detective, signs and symptoms and yada, yada, yada. And these now, what Coolest Reviews has done is taken a time for learning, right? Information, and now is applying it to his real life. This is outstanding. I love it. I love it too. And listen, bless his heart, not your mama. I'm going to try to come up with a loophole for that argument on behalf of my client. But I can't right now because my 11 billion tabs are too full up. So, but I'll have one shortly. All right, let's see if we're close. We're almost caught up. We're caught up and they're still not back. Okay. Boo. Okay, it switched it back. Perfect. Yeah. I mean, the truth is it's not looking good for Amber. It's really not. And by that I mean, as her capacity as the respondent, it's not looking good. And in her capacity with her countersuit, it's not looking good either. I mean, at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that all of these rebuttal witnesses that have come to testify, the expert witnesses, we'll save Kate Moss because her testimony was brief but important. Anyway, they have directly, which I mean, obviously that's what they're there to do, right? They're testifying for Johnny Depp. And so, of course, they're going to testify favorably to him. But the most important thing, in my opinion, is that, yes, they are testifying on Johnny Depp's behalf. But what they do is when they reach a conclusion, then they show how they arrived at their conclusion with charts, data, you know, what did the excuse me, forensic accountant, what term did he use? Rooted in facts, based in facts, something to that effect. And how about those scores? Normally, right, anybody would like to get a 90% score, right? That sounds good. You scored 98%. You must have done well. Well, evidently, when it's a test for feigning, You don't want to get that kind of score. That's the opposite of the type of score you'd want. You'd actually want a lower score. So what have we learned today from the testing results? Basically, Amber is very, very proficient and even excels at lying. And I can promise you that if that's how, and I'm a layperson, even though I'm surrounded by professionals, i.e., Dr. B, who could break this down for me 11 billion different ways, right? I- I'm still a layperson at the end of the day. And I kind of feel like that's the way the jury is going to take it. People associate feigning with faking, which faking is a synonym for lying. I'm sure she's going to try all of the things that she was duped, she was tricked, she was bamboozled, she was run amok, she was led astray. She's going to give the whole Malcolm X speech. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. That's going to be her whole spiel. She's going to try all the things. I actually like Malcolm X speech. I think it's a really good one. But I feel like Amber Heard is going to, try all of those things to attempt to sway public opinion, because she can't sway the jury. I mean, sir, wouldn't it be funny though if I can't see this happening, but it would be kind of funny if Johnny Depp's team called Amber Heard as a rebuttal witness. Oh, it would be funny. It would be funny. But she's definitely going to say that they tricked her, that those muffins were coercion, and yeah. You're correct, Coolest Reviews, and to that point, there's a lot of talk. There's been a lot of testimony, specifically from Dr. Emmett Brown, Dr. Spiegel, who talked about Johnny Depp's paranoia, right? And I would like to ask this question. Is it paranoia if you're right? So if you are, I'll use their word, paranoid about your spouse cheating on you while you're, I don't know, say out of town, either on a tour with your band or filming, and later video evidence from the apartment building elevator surveillance later shows that you did have a man up in your apartment and that you two were canoodling in the elevator. Is that paranoia? See, because to me, paranoia is you're worried about something that is absolutely not true, right? But if it turns out that it absolutely is something that did happen that you were worried about, then it's not paranoia. It's called a gut feeling. It's called intuition. It's called something ain't right. Also, I really liked the gentleman who testified yesterday, Mr. Knight, about what he witnessed at Hicksville, because I think that was really, really important. For the first time, there was a witness who is not a friend, doesn't know Amber Heard or Johnny Depp, or it even isn't a friend of a friend. This is just some guy, right, that happened to own the trailer park that was rented out. So And he clearly doesn't know that umbrella guy, Elaine. So let it go. But anyway, my point is, I thought that was one heck of a witness, because it's, as much as they tried to imply that he was there because he wanted to insert himself in this trial and yada yada yada, which, if he still owned the trailer park, I would be more inclined to, I would entertain that, right? Possibility. But he doesn't. Okay. So not only did he witness an argument between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, where he says that Amber was most definitely the instigator. Okay. It was $65. You're absolutely correct, Amelia Sparkles. We heard so much testimony from Amber Heard's friends about this Hulk smash level damage to the trailer that Amber and Johnny were staying in. And meanwhile, here comes Mr. Knight talking about, I billed them for $65. 65, which I find incredible, especially considering the fact that
Commissioner, we'd like to raise
Okay,
the-
sure.
specific trailer had not been restored, that it was actually in its almost original state from the 1950s, having the things that were still original to the trailer, not a recreation. And $65, not even, I get, yes, sugar beet, and not even the $25 an hour cleaning fee. Like, I thought this is what I thought happened with that, Amelia Sparkles, is that he found the item on eBay and ordered it off of eBay. And that's how he ended up charging them the $65. That's what I thought it was. But I maybe I misunderstood. I was at that point in the testimony, quite frankly, not because of him or anything else, but I was just tired, you know. Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, there you go. Like, we're talking, this again, Hulk smash, Tasmanian devil. I mean, put it any way you want it, but it doesn't bear that out. And I'm really glad that they were able to find him, because that's important testimony. That's very, very important testimony. When you're talking about, I mean, it puts all of her witness testimony credibility in question, because and I kind of had thought about this while all of the testimony was going on about this Hicksville situation and incident. I kind of wondered, like, what the staff had to clean up afterwards. And was there, like, were they billed extra? And then, Chick Tracy. I wondered about that. I wondered, was there some like ridiculous paper trail? And I kind of thought that when the testimony about from the accountant, the one that managed all of like his business manager, whenever he was testifying, I didn't watch it, to be honest. And so I thought maybe that was covered in that testimony and I had just missed it, because it seemed like everybody was just sort of accepting it as fact. And when I think back on Johnny Depp's testimony, he did admit to breaking the wall sconce. And now that I'm really like actually thinking back on it, I feel like that's all that he admitted to was the wall sconce. And that's it. So, but of course his testimony was so like in the scheme of this trial 11 billion years ago. Do you know what I mean? The way this trial's been going, it's not because it's a long trial, it's just because there's been so much information. And I feel like when I look back on Johnny Depp's testimony, and then when I think back about it, and then I think back about Mr. Knight's testimony, right? That's what Johnny Depp was saying. He was saying in his way, right? Not directly. And I think this is why I didn't catch it, but basically he was saying, yeah, all I did was break a sconce, which is bad. I shouldn't have done that, but I didn't trash the place. And then we have Kate Moss, who comes up and again, well played, Amber, opening the door. And now the jury is going to hear from Kate Moss herself what happened that day. You know, and Kate Moss, to be fair, she has nothing to gain or to lose by telling the truth in this situation. Nothing. And I mean, if she were to, I just can't. You know how many times I've slipped down the stairs? I remember, a long time ago, this is when I very first ever had my first problem with my back. It was, probably like 2003, maybe 2004. I was standing out front of my house and I was talking to a neighbor and I sneezed. And all of a sudden my back just locked up. And I remember waiting for my husband to get home from work because there was no way that I was going to be able to drive myself to the hospital. No way. I couldn't even move. And when I got to the hospital, I couldn't walk. Even if he would have stopped at the emergency room doors, I couldn't even walk from the car into the emergency room. So I had to be wheeled in a wheelchair. And I remember very, very distinctly, there was a point where the nurse had my husband step out of the room and she asked me questions that were similar to what Dr. Curry was testifying to, like the ER nurse evaluations about if I was safe at home and stuff like that. And of course, I was, and that was not an issue for me. But I do remember thinking, I'm really glad that if my injury had been the result of domestic violence, and I was scared to tell, that there's a system in place for that. So that's just a little personal, little reference for you guys. The sidebar is taking forever. I wonder if the sidebars, I guess it's not really a sidebar, but whatever this is, a motion or something, I don't know what they're called. I don't know what this is called right now because I can't even remember what he said it was. But a bit of housekeeping. I wonder if this takes off time off their clock. And since it was Johnny Depp's team that raised the issue, I believe, right? Am I correct in that? That if it takes off time from his clock. It was good nursing, Sugar Beet. It really was. Because what if, that had been my situation? And I just think, obviously it's not my situation, but it does make me grateful that there is a system in place for domestic violence victims, and that, we can't ever be grateful enough for good heads up nurses. So good, that was seems like whatever the matter is, it's Mr. Rottenborn is taking the lead. And look at Elaine trying to lean in. Like, Mr. Nadelhoff, why don't you scooch? Let your co-counsel up there, bruh. Mr. Chu, you're on camera. Hey, Smalls, good morning. Good morning, good morning. We're all just kind of kicking it, waiting to see what's next. Oh boy. Oh boy, what's happening? Oh, here we go. All right. Tons. And you know what, you guys, I know that you guys in chat probably won't judge me, but maybe somebody will on the replay. Now I can't even, I feel like they didn't even cross-examine Kate Moss, did they? I feel like they didn't. I just feel like so far we've been inundated with so much testimony at this point. That's what I thought. Okay, good, because like I don't know what's going on with my amygdala. I feel like my amygdala is intact. And my function is my cognitive function is or what did he call it? My processing speed. I feel like my processing speed is good, but I also feel like I'm a little tired and I need a little ginkgo biloba, a little supplement, because it's just been a lot, And then I think what happens for me is I get a little like antsy with the constant sidebars, especially when they're really long. Like this one is like long, and yeah, I get a little bored because I have no idea what they could possibly be discussing. I want to know, and the only way for me to know is to sit here and wait. And I'm not a fan of waiting. I'm not even going to front. I just don't care for it. Don't like it. It's not fun to me. I don't know if waiting is fun for anybody, to be fair, but it's definitely not fun for old Jen Lou. That is faux show. Not a fan. Yes, this better be super important. I doubt he flies every day to Virginia. I feel like he likely stays there during the week and leaves, at the end of the, over the weekend. Usually they have the 3-day weekend, but this week I don't think they do. I think they're going to be going like full time all the way till Friday. No Friday off, no 3-day vacay. So, yeah. That's what I think. I have a it's not that I don't. I mean, I probably do need a hobby. I'm not really that good at I've tried meditating. I'm just frankly not good at it because when I'm supposed to not be thinking of anything, that's when I be thinking of everything. Just not good at meditating. I have a hard time not thinking about a lot of things simultaneously. I've always been that way. What is Smalls wondering? Let me scroll up. Maybe I do need Tai Chi. I do like yoga. I do like yoga. I should get back to doing yoga. When I first moved to Florida, I used to do hot yoga. I don't know if anybody's ever tried hot yoga, but if you haven't, if you like yoga, I would suggest trying hot yoga because I loved it. I loved hot yoga way better than just regular yoga, honestly. And yeah, coolest reviews. What if you hate everything? What if you're one of those people? Maybe I'm one of those people. No, I'm not. I don't. I don't. The only thing, okay, that I would use, that I would say that I hate, and I don't even think I would actually use that word, are eggs. I really am just not a freaking
Your
fan of
next
eggs
witness.
in any form.
I'm sorry. Let's get the jury first, right?
Yeah, let's get the
All right,
jury
ready for the jury?
first. That's important. Oh, so hot yoga is yoga where they turn like the heat on in the room like way up. So you're not only doing all of the really great stretching and poses and stuff, but you're sweating too. So it's, you detoxify your own body by the sweat. So it helps with detox.
All right, thank you.
I just love hot yoga.
Are we ready for the next witness? Or do you want
Yes,
to
we call Mr. Depp.
Okay.
You think that you would, but you don't. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just so good. It's just the best. I love hot yoga.
So just a reminder, you're still under oath, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you, sir.
Oh,
Good morning, Mr. Depp.
Good morning.
hey.
We heard a lot about some statements that Mr. Waldman made. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And Mr. Waldman is your attorney or was your attorney?
Yes.
Could we please pull up Defendants Exhibit 1245? And this is already in evidence, so permission to please
Yes.
publish. If we could scroll down to the second page. Mr. Depp, do you see the statement here attributed to Mr. Waldman?
Yes, I do.
When's the first time that you saw this statement?
All right.
Oh, for Pete's sake. Already? We're like 2 seconds into it. Well, they may have had Johnny Depp as their last witness, Schmida, but they have quite a bit of time left on the clock. So it could be that they may rest early or that they plan to have Johnny Depp do a lot of rebutting. What? Hey guys, remember that day that Amber put her ring in her pocket for no reason?
We can pull the exhibit back up. Thank you. Mr. Depp, when is the first time that you saw this statement by Mr. Waldman?
The first time that I ever saw this statement was in August. It was when the piece was when August 2020, when I was countersued by Misrepresentation. This is the first time that I saw any of these statements.
Can we please pull up Defendants Exhibit 1246?
I don't know, anaphylaxis. It was, thank you, Sugar
And
Beet.
this is also already in evidence.
I can't remember. I don't
can
know
scroll
what,
down
what
to
she
the
put in
second
her
page.
mouth. I don't know why
Or
she
the
took off her
third,
rings.
perhaps. Thank
I
you.
don't know anything.
Mr. Depp, do you see this statement that's attributed to Mr. Waldman here?
I do.
And when is the first time that you saw these statements?
Same when the countersuit was filed.
And could we please go to Defendants Exhibit 1247? And again, this is already in evidence. And if we could scroll down, please, thank you. Mr. Depp, do you see the statement attributed to Mr. Waldman?
I do indeed, yes.
And when's the first time that you saw this statement?
This is the same. It's the counterclaim to August 2020.
After you saw these statements for the first time, did you form an understanding as to where they appeared?
I didn't, as to where they had appeared, the statements.
In what publication?
No, off the bat, I didn't know exactly. It just seemed like a lot of word salad to me. I didn't know where they'd come from, or I mean, where they ended up. Or
Mr. Depp, do you recall Ms. Heard testifying that you did not assist her in getting her role in Aquaman?
yes, I do. Yes.
And what is your response to that? It's not exactly true. Do you know when Ms. Heard first auditioned for Aquaman?
Strangely, I know the date. Well, no, yes, I do know the date, because I was scheduled with my band, the Hollywood Vampires. We had done 2 shows at the Roxy, which is a place in Los Angeles, to rehearse for we were invited to play at the Rock in Rio concert, which is a huge rock and roll festival. So we did the 2 shows to go to Rio and play there. Miss Heard I wanted to come with me, and Whitney, her sister, had come as well. while we were there in Rio, we were rehearsing, getting ready for the show. Ms. Hurd informed me that she would have to get back to Los Angeles for an audition, meaning it's basically after our 2-hour show or whatever, we would have to get on the plane immediately to make it back to Los Angeles for this audition. And that audition was at Warner Brothers. It was whatever film it was.
And when were you performing at the Rock in Rio?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was I believe it was the 24th of September.
In what year?
That was 15.
What do you understand happened after Miss Hurd auditioned for Aquaman?
After Ms. Hurd's audition, or possibly auditions for Warner Brothers and I suppose the creative team, Ms. Hurd had expressed to me that the film was going to be, Warner Brothers had said that the film was going to be shooting in Australia. And Australia was for Ms. Hurd, that was a potential problem, which.
Objection, Your Honor. We approach.
Okay.
No, for Pete's sake. Why would that be? Why is there an objection? What are you objecting to? What's about to come out of his mouth that you don't want them to hear? That she was worried. Was this before or after she smuggled the dogs? Is that what the problem is? Is that what she's worried about? She done smuggled some pupsters? I don't know, Amelia, but I feel like they do. Yeah, but beyond the scope of what? Because this testimony he is rebutting Miss Hurd's testimony that he did not help her get an audition or the role, or help her in any capacity to get the role of Mira in Aquaman. And so I don't understand how this could possibly be beyond the scope. Well, this would have been before that. This would have been before that the finger incident, right? 2015. Well, wait, let me think. Oh, wait, you guys might be right. As Alice in Wonderland would say, curiouser and curiouser. I'm very curious why she was as scared of Australia. I would love to go to Australia. Why is what relevant, Tony, babe? Schmida. At least you're honest, babe. If you're asking why him getting her an audition would be relevant, this is why I think it would be relevant. I'm going to pause real quick.
I apologize, Mr. Depp. Could you please?
The reason I think it would be relevant, because this is important, is because Dr. Spiegel testified that one of the ways that Mr. Depp abused Amber Heard was financially, i.e., sabotaging her work, not allowing her to go to auditions, etc. So this does also directly rebut that. If he helped her to get an audition, then how is he financially abusing her? So, okay, let's see.
Please continue. What happened after Miss Hurd auditioned for Aquaman?
I was informed by Ms. Heard that the film was going to be shooting in Australia, and that was of concern to her, and because it was of concern to Warner Brothers. So she asked if I would, because I'd had a multi, for a few years I'd had a multi-film deal with Warner Brothers, and so we'd been in business together. So I knew these people. I'd been on films with them. So she asked me if I would speak to them. I made a phone call and I spoke to.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
I don't believe he said anything. I think he was going to say who
Okay.
he spoke to.
All right, we'll see. Overruled at this point.
I spoke to the three upper echelon Disney Warner executives: Kevin Tsujihara, Sue Kroll, and Greg Silverstein. And I told them that.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
All right, I'll
We
sustain
can
the
move
objection.
on.
Next question.
What was the result of you speaking with those individuals?
Well, I can only say that ultimately she did get the job in the film. So hopefully I suppose I had curbed their worries to some degree.
Mr. Depp, do you recall Ms. Heard testifying that she saw you consume 8 to 10 MDMA pills while you were in Australia in March of 2015?
Yes, I do remember that.
How
I
many
also
times?
remember her saying that I took a handful.
Objection beyond the scope. Question.
Sorry, that was extra
All
residue.
right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
How many times have you done MDMA in your life, Mr. Depp?
Actually, not that many times. I would say in my lifetime, MDMA.
That face, Amber.
6, 7, maybe.
And how much MDMA have you done on those occasions?
That's what I was wondering. Smalls, thank you.
Not enough to properly. Not enough to properly experience what the.
Not
film
enough to
was
be
supposed
turned.
to
Got you.
do to you.
Have you ever consumed 8 to 10 MDMA pills at once?
No, ma'am. No, I have not.
And why is that?
Because I'd be dead. I'm pretty sure I'd be dead.
Doesn't seem safe. I
think
agree.
one would die. Yes, and probably rather quickly.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you some pictures from the home in Australia that Ms. Heard testified about.
Sure.
Could we please pull up Defendants Exhibit 1817?
I'll be
which is
right back,
already
you
in
guys. Shmita, you're in charge. Shmita, you're not in on your, are you in on your modded? Do I need to mod this
Mr.
one
Depp,
for
do you
you?
recognize what's depicted
on.
in this photograph?
Yes, I do. That's the downstairs bar of the house we rented.
Oh, no,
in
you are. I just couldn't
Australia.
see it. Okay.
And
Sorry.
can you please show the jury where you were sitting when Ms. Heard threw the 2 vodka bottles at you?
I'll be right back. Shmita's in
If I
charge.
push this thing, it'll make a
Yes,
mark.
it will.
Yes. Okay. So this share, that one here was over here. And it was in pretty much when I was turned around they were on a swivel. So when I was turned around towards the bar, I'm facing the bar. When I turned around this way, this chair here was in pretty much exactly this same position as this chair. It was when I was facing Miss Heard, who was, let's say she was, if you're looking at the photograph, she would be about here.
Could you draw a line in the direction where Miss Heard was relative to where you were sitting?
Yes, absolutely. So if I'm sitting here, she was over here, back here.
Approximately how far away from Miss Heard, from you was Miss Heard, if you can recall?
I would say it was probably 10, 12, 15 feet, maybe 10 feet, 12 feet.
And approximately where was your hand when the vodka bottle hit it?
It was leaning. My arm was leaning on the marble bar, right there where that imaginary seat is, and leaning, kind of just leaning back and looking at Miss Heard. She just walked away with the second bottle. I mean, she walked this way when she threw the first bottle, which is actually visible
Can
in
you
the
please circle
background
where
on the
the
floor.
first? Yeah. Could you please circle where the first bottle
Oh,
is?
sorry, excuse me. Yeah. All that is the exploded first bottle that went past my head, and the second bottle hit right up here where my hand was resting on the marble bar.
Can we please pull up Defendants Exhibit 1820? Mr. Depp, do you recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
This is behind that very bar.
And what do you see on the floor in this picture?
I see what looks to me like some kind of napkin. It looks sullied, soiled, blood, I don't know. And I see glass in the corner, blood obviously on the floor, and a towel leaning up on something.
Do you know how that bloody tissue got on the floor?
My best guess,
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Do you know how the blood got on the floor, Mr. Depp?
I know how the blood got on the floor. It came from my dripping finger. So that's why the tissue is I'm 99.9% sure, since it is, looks like it's got blood on it as well, is what I held my finger with.
Do you see the wall on the left side of the photograph?
I do.
Was there a wall-mounted phone on that wall?
On the left side of the photo, no, I didn't. No, not that I recall. No.
Could we please pull up Defendants Exhibit 394, which is already in evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Depp, do you recognize this text message?
I do.
And what is this message?
Um, it's a text to Dr. Kipper. Um,
And
I'm sorry, just reading through.
Sure.
Yeah, this is my text to Dr. Kipper, who had just happened to be in town, telling him that I've had it and that I just lost a fingertip.
How long after your finger had been injured did you send this text message, if you can recall?
It's hard to tell because when I look at the timestamp, it says delivered 3/7/2015, 5 o'clock. But I know that because of Australia time, it was the 8th, and it was probably, the whole thing lasted probably until about 2 p.m. Or so, and that was when Kipper was called, Jerry was brought in, Jerry Judge, sorry, excuse me.
So do you have an estimate as to how long after your finger had actually been injured that you sent this message?
I don't think it was very long. I think it was probably within the next, I'm sure it was in the next half hour or so. I would have had to sneak into a bathroom, lock myself in to type this out.
And how were you able to send this text message to Dr. Kipper in the state that you were in?
Well, he wasn't available at the time, so just sort of thumb your way through, don't you?
How long after sending this text message did you see Dr. Kipper?
I don't recall that. I think it took them probably 30 minutes or more, 30 to 40 minutes to get there.
And what did Dr. Kipper do when he first arrived at the home?
Oh, the first thing he wanted to do was inspect the damage of my finger and try and figure out exactly what had happened, how it happened.
And what did you tell Dr. Kipper about how your finger had been injured?
Objection, Your Honor.
May we
You're
approach?
saying
All
we've
right,
discussed
that's
this
fine.
several times.
That's fine.
Mr. Depp, when Dr. Kipper was treating your finger, what did you tell him about how your finger became injured?
I told him that there was obviously, I mean, when you saw the damage in the house and everything, the blood everywhere, I mean, obviously there was serious damage done. There would be no point in lying to the man. He'd been through it with me and Ms. Red before. I told him that she had thrown a bottle of vodka and smashed and cut my finger off, the tip of my finger.
Just the tip.
But the
Come on,
truth-
say it. You want to say it. Come
I
on.
miss it.
Mr. Depp, you heard Ms. Heard testify about an alleged incident of abuse on your honeymoon. Do you remember that?
I remember her testifying to that, yes.
And when did you and Ms. Heard go on your honeymoon together?
I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of August, because I just finished the film, maybe end of July, August. I'm not quite good on the exact date.
Do you recall the year?
It was 2015, I believe.
And where did you and Ms. Heard go on your honeymoon?
We took the Orient Express from Bangkok, Thailand to Singapore.
And what happened while you and Ms. Heard were together on the Orient Express?
There were times when it was very agreeable, very nice. And then there were times when something had become dissatisfactory for her, and she would start the rant, the blooming of a fight would be on deck there, and at one point, it didn't. I mean, I don't remember it lasting long at all. I just remember that I took a pretty good
Wow,
shot
Smalls.
to the face, to the eye, to somewhere up here. So I had a bit of a shiner.
Shmita, was Jennifer Howell on the
but
list? Do you remember, babe, if you're around?
It all ended, and then everything got fine again, and we'd go to dinner, and it was all fine.
Did Ms. Heard ever apologize to you for giving you the shiner?
I don't recall.
Can we please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 162, which is already in evidence? Mr. Depp, do you recognize this photograph?
I do. It was with the chef and the maitre d' and the staff were asking if they could take a photo with us, and they've been very kind, giving us a
And
private dinner card.
so where was this photograph taken?
That was in the that looks like it's in the, yes, that's towards the back of the Orient Express. That's in the back bar compartment, and just out back you could smoke on the sort of caboose or whatever.
And what, if any, injuries do you have in this photograph?
I think the eye's a little bit bugged out, if you will. It's, yeah.
How did that happen?
These things could happen very quickly. If you disagreed
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive. She just asked, how did that happen?
I
All right.
believe he was about to explain.
Well, I sustain the objection.
Okay. So, Mr. Depp, specifically, how did the injury in this photograph occur?
I'm sure it hit me. Is that better?
Does this picture accurately reflect what you looked like on that date?
I don't look at myself much, but it certainly looks like me with a black eye.
Does this picture appear to have been photoshopped in any way?
No, I think no. I think it would be difficult to photograph or to start getting into sort of digital processing with a number of people in the shot, especially in a wide shot.
Could we please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 1301? And this is a new one, Your Honor, so this is not in evidence.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Depp, do you recognize what's reflected in this photograph?
Yes, this is the staff. It's the manager and his staff at the Raffles Hotel in Singapore. And before we left, they asked if they could take a photograph with us.
And when was this photograph taken?
Well, that would have been, we were off the Orient Express. We stayed in Raffles, I believe, a couple of days, few days. And then from there, we flew to San Francisco.
So this photograph was taken after the photograph we just looked at?
This photograph was taken after the photograph in the dining car of the train, yes.
Your Honor, I move Plaintiff's Exhibit 1301 into
All right,
evidence.
any objection?
Happy honeymoon. So
Any,
31st of October.
any objection?
No objection, Your
All
Honor.
right, 1301 is an evidence can be published to the jury.
Mr. Depp, what, if any, injuries do you see on your face in this photograph?
I see pretty much the same. I see that the area in here has been well is swollen and yeah, there's a bit of a shiner there.
Thank you. We can take this down. Mr. Depp, do you recall Ms. Heard testifying that she punched you in the staircase incident because she thought of Kate Moss in the stairs?
Do I remember her saying that?
Yes.
Yes, I do. 3 times. Yes, I do.
Do you have any understanding as to what Ms. Heard was referring to?
Yes, I do.
And
As Kate Moss, Kate testified, it was many, many years ago. And exactly what happened is what she said happened. I recall speaking with Ms. Heard about that very incident because of the downpouring of rain, because it was raining very heavily that day that Kate slipped. And I recalled the story to her.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
may we approach Your Honor?
Okay.
Here we go with the never-ending approaches. Which I don't even understand this one. Yeah, Yvonne, her face during this testimony, I find puzzling. frankly. I don't know another
Please
way to,
continue, Mr. Depp.
to
What
say
did
it,
you tell Ms. Hurd about
honestly.
the staircase or with Kate Moss?
I'll make it easy for Mr. Rottenborn. Ms. Hurd took the story and turned it into a very ugly incident, all in her mind. There was never a moment where I pushed Kate down any set of stairs, yet she's spewed this 3 times before.
Objection, Your Honor. Ms. Hurd simply testified that she had heard a rumor, and that's
What's a rumor?
non-responsive to the question.
Oh, no, Johnny. No.
Objection. I'll overrule the objection.
Misstates the facts and evidence.
I'll overrule the objection.
Sorry, I was drawn by Mr. Rottenborn's
No,
voice.
no.
Certainly.
What was you like? Was it?
So what specifically had you actually told Ms. Hurd about the incident with Miss Moss and the stairs?
Very simply that we were in Jamaica. I had left our bungalow about 3 minutes prior to her. I was standing outside and suddenly rain starts just coming down like it's, a monsoon. And then I remember looking and seeing Kate coming out the door, and there were 3 little wooden stairs, and she slipped, her legs went up, and she landed directly on her coccyx and her lower back. So, and she was obviously physically in pain, and she was hurt, she was crying. So I ran over and grabbed her to make sure she was all right. That's it. That's all I ever. That's the whole story. But then the rumor of it, I'd never heard a rumor of that before Miss Hurd grabbed hold of it.
I hope they are as well, Sarah. For reals.
Like that. Sorry.
Mr. Depp, we heard testimony from Miss Hurd's sister, Whitney, during this trial. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And how would you describe your relationship with Whitney?
Who is
when you
she
were in a
looking
relationship with
at?
Miss Hurd?
I liked Whitney very much. Initially, when I first met her, I liked her very much, and grew to love Whitney very much, because I always, it seemed Whitney.
Is that
my
who you
sister
think,
Whitney
Amelia?
seemed to
Okay.
always get the sort of dirty end of the stick, and I felt bad for her for that, because it wasn't new. It had been there for life, and that was seemed pretty obvious. So I took to Whitney very, very quickly, very easily. She was a very sweet kid. She was wonderful.
What do you mean that Whitney got the dirty end of the stick?
It was a kind of a strange combination of loving sister, trusted sister and friend, and then lackey, and
Wow.
and either the
That's
punching bag or
sad.
the dartboard, or the recipient of some rather demeaning and ugly words, or she would have wine thrown in her face.
And who was the source of those demeaning words and the wine that you just referenced?
Well, that would be Amber Heard, her sister.
And how do you know that?
Well, I witnessed quite a lot of it. The wine in the face was something that happened in New York, which I think that even made it into the papers. I believe that even made it into the papers. It was in an elevator.
How did you first learn about that incident?
Miss Hurd told me in detail.
Which Miss Hurd?
What else did you observe of
Or does Whitney have a different
Miss
last
Hurd and
name?
her sister Whitney's interactions during your relationship with Miss Hurd?
They were just constantly up and down, but I could sense, I could feel that Whitney was trying to please her sister, trying to be up to snuff, and it just seemed like she got shot down.
Objection,
every
Your
time.
Honor. This has gone beyond the scope of the question or his foundation for knowledge of that.
Your Honor, I asked what he observed, between them. I think this is responsive to that.
And his testimony as to what Whitney felt is.
I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Did you ever see Miss Hurd physically attack Whitney?
Yes, it is Smalls. Absolutely.
No, I've never seen any full-on blowouts, physical blowouts between them. Tons of verbal
Objection
blowouts.
beyond the scope.
Overruled.
I've certainly seen Miss Hurd grab Whitney, push her around. There were a number. There were half a dozen times when some of us, whoever was in the general vicinity, would have to leave. This is at Orange, when Whitney and Amber were living at Orange. Whitney and her boyfriend at the time, Sean Krajewski, and we had to leave the apartment and
Why
wait
was
in the car while they fought.
And when you say fought, do you mean
Physical.
physically or?
Physical.
And when you said Miss Hurd would push Whitney around, do you mean that physically push her or metaphorically?
Both.
You heard Whitney testify that she lived in Penthouse 4 at the Eastern Columbia building for a time, correct?
That is correct, yes.
How did Whitney come to live in Penthouse 4?
My recollection when Whitney first came to stay at the Eastern Columbia building in Penthouse 4 was she and her boyfriend, Sean, had broken up. And she needed a place to go. And so Amber asked if she could stay in Penthouse 4, and I said, well, of course, of course.
How long did Whitney live in Penthouse 4?
It was well over a year, on and off.
Did you ever ask Whitney to move out of Penthouse 4?
No, I did not, no.
Why did Whitney ultimately move out of Penthouse 4?
Objection, foundation.
It's his apartment, Your Honor. He was living there.
Oh, overruled.
I won't tell.
Whitney moved out of Penthouse 4 long before the marriage.
He had a little bit of
And it was due
bobble, but
to
he's done well
a-
so far, coolest.
An argument that Ms. Hurd and Whitney had, which had to do with Whitney working at the Art of Elysium with Jennifer Howell and those people.
Here we go.
And Amber asked her to leave. get out.
Where did Whitney live when she moved out of Penthouse 4?
My understanding is she went to live with Jennifer Howell.
Your Honor, I know you anticipated having a motion at noon.
You can keep going. That's
Okay.
fine. We can- How much longer in direct do you have?
I have a bit.
Okay, it's okay.
I just want everybody to,
Mr. Depp,
let
do
me
you
just
recall
pause
hearing
this real quick
testimony
because I want
during
to say
Ms.
something
Heard's case?
just really quick. I don't know if you guys were paying attention as far as like looking. I know you were paying attention to what was being said, but he took a sip out of his mug that he's got right there, and there was a spillage, and he cleaned it up. So what I want to say, in my opinion, is and he did it in the right way, not just sweeping crumbs on the floor the way that Amber Heard does, because what she was doing was she was concerned with cleaning up the mess immediately around her. She didn't want the mess near her. She wasn't actually cleaning the mess up. If she'd been cleaning the mess up, she might have swept the crumbs into a tissue or a napkin, right? Because it was about her comfortability. And I've seen him do this a few times while he was testifying the first go around on direct, and he's actually cleaning up the mess, which to me is indicative that he is not this narcissistic, entitled, he's not the Titanic where everybody is running around trying to keep him afloat. I just wanted to point that out, and I'll get back to it. And I'm off my soapbox because my back hurts.
From Mr. Mandel?
Yes, I do.
And who is that?
Mr. Mandel is my former business manager of 17 and a half years, who at a certain point I discovered had been embezzling quite a lot of money. So I had to take action against him and he and my lawyer of 17 and a half years, as they were
Thanks.
in
I'll be paying attention,
cahoots,
y'all.
as it were. And so yes, Joel Mandel is and they settled.
Thanks, Coolest. It
their
hurts all
case,
the time. Sometimes it's just a little worse than
with me. They
others.
made their
Today's one of
settlement.
those days.
But yes, it was the big. That was a very Joel Mandel is a very bitter man who ended up with a lot of money that I worked hard for over the years.
Do you recall Mr. Mandel testifying in this case that you do not spend very much money on charity?
That I don't. Sorry.
That you do not spend very much money on charity?
Objection, Your Honor.
You just want to
Can we
approach?
approach?
Okay.
Yes. I mean, I think even me, I had an expectation that it's not that I thought that Johnny Depp wasn't a nice person, right? But I had an expectation of him to somewhat be oblivious to things around him and how maybe they might affect others
Mr.
because
Depp,
he's
just
used to
remind
having
you,
people
my question was,
clean
what
up
is your
after him, but
response to
that's not
Mr.
so.
Mandel's testimony that you do not spend very much on charity?
My response to that is Mr. Mandel is a very bitter man. And one thing about that, myself personally, with regard to charity donations, sending money to a charity, I prefer I don't, I would rather that my name were not on it. I don't want the name to be the important thing or the thing that people talk about. So when I donate money, I donate without my name being involved because I don't see that that's important, my name being there in terms of money. Now, if I am able to visit hospitals, or if I'm able to meet with Make-A-Wish children, I have held on to the relationships that I've held on to within the Make-A-Wish Foundation and the Children's Hospital and various other places. Then obviously my name is involved. When we held premieres in Leicester Square for several films, Charlie and the
Objection, Your Honor.
Chocolate Factory.
Again, beyond the scope of his response to Mr. Mandel's testimony.
I believe this is in response to Mr. Mandel.
I'll overrule the objection.
So basically, when it was a public, let's call it donation or whatever, I would talk to the studio. I would talk to Disney. I would talk to Warner Brothers. I would talk to whoever the studio was well before the premiere, and make the premiere a benefit that would, once we did what we benefited, we did a benefit premiere for Great Ormond Street Hospital. We did a couple of benefit premieres for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I mean, if you can turn a premiere with that many thousands and thousands and thousands of people there into a benefit, it works and it helps. But it wasn't presented under my name, you know. It was Disney's doing this or Warner Brothers is doing this. I'm not looking for the pat on the back, as it were. If I can make it happen, great. But I don't need the pat on the back. I don't need the adulation. I don't need the attention.
Did you hear Ms. Heard testify that one of the charities she donated a portion of your divorce settlement to was the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles?
Yes.
What is your relationship with the CHLA?
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant. To the
May
issue
we
just
approach, Your
discussed.
Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Depp, what is your relationship with the CHLA?
I've had a relationship with the CHLA for probably 20 years or so.
And what's just the nature of that relationship?
Well, essentially, sometimes there are Make-A-Wish kids who are in the hospital there, and that their wish is to.
Objection, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Okay.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to take you back to exactly 6 years prior to this week, the week of May 21st through May 27th, 2016. What happened at the beginning of that week?
May 21st.
Excuse me, May 20th.
May 20th. We're talking 2016, yeah.
Yes.
May 20th, the afternoon of May 20th, afternoon, evening, my mom made her exit. She'd been fighting cancer numerous times and for many years, and she fought all the way to the end. And
I just want to touch on this really, really quickly. To dissociative state. No, their divorce decree is not public. In fact, the settlement was that they reached was they both signed an NDA, which Amber Heard violated when she made her announcement that she would be donating the entirety of her divorce settlement, which was $7 million. $3.5 million would go to the ACLU, and $3.5 million would go to the Children's Hospital. And so that is why it's now come out that the time frame between when she got her settlement and when he sued her was 13 months. She couldn't possibly have anticipated a lawsuit and didn't make any attempt at all to honor her pledge by donating. Okay. I'm just going to speed him up a little so that we're on time with the court. It'll go right back to normal as soon as we're caught up. Okay, here we go.
so my mother passed away on the 20th of May.
Doesn't he,
Which
recliner
does bring
detective? I'm
instant
finding it
perspective into one's mind.
very distracting.
I spoke to Amber that night. I called her on the telephone, explained to her that my mom had passed, Betty Sue had passed, and that I thought that the best thing we could do was to that I filed for
Objection, Your Honor.
divorce.
Hearsay. What Mr. Depp told Ms. Heard.
We can move on. Your
Okay,
Honor.
yes, ma'am.
Mr. Depp, what happened at the end of that week on May 27th, 2016?
May 27th, my daughter's birthday. May 27th. I was not in Los Angeles. I was on the way to on tour, and that was when Ms. Heard went for the restraining order. And oh yeah, also that was the day that Alice Through the Looking Glass, a film I'd done, was opening.
Did Ms. Heard know that you were out of town on May 27th?
Yes.
And how would she have known that?
Well, I told her I was going on tour. I mean, that was well established.
How long were you going to be out of town on that tour?
2 to 3 months.
And did Ms. Heard know how long you'd be out of town?
I don't know if she knew exactly how long I'd be out of town, but it was a pretty extensive tour of Europe.
How did Ms. Heard's actions
A
on May
narcissist would have
27th,
said she should have
2016
known.
affect you?
Changed everything.
Objection, Your Honor.
Oh,
Relevance
it didn't change
to this
everything?
lawsuit.
Sorry.
Sir, if you could wait till the objection, please.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Relevance.
Tourette's.
Your Honor, this is one of the key
If you want to
dates.
approach.
Right? I mean, would you guys agree that somebody who who is a narcissist would have said, yes, she knew, because to their mind, right, everything revolves around them. So she should have known how long the tour was, right? But instead, he answered honestly, which would be, I don't know if she knew exactly how long the tour was, but she knew that it was going to be a tour through Europe, so it would be extensive. That's an honest response. And in my opinion, although I am not qualified to treat, diagnose, or all of them, this is just my opinion for entertainment purposes only, it doesn't sound to me like something a narcissist would say. You know how I know that? Because my dad is one. Yes, which I'm glad that you reminded me of this, because I was thinking about this when he said it. That is an element of the time frame or the timeline of events that I was not previously aware of. Like, he did not in his direct testimony include that. It was mainly about him going on tour and being gone, and that's when she did it. But this adds a different layer of, if you're inclined to believe this, which I am, this adds a different layer of duplicity in the act. Hey, Charlie, glad you could slide in to what she did. She knew he would be, it's like, an added insult, really. I mean, bottom line is she knew he was out of town, so she could get the TRO without him being informed of it, and without him having counsel there to represent him in his absence. And simultaneously, he's having a children's
Mr. Depp,
movie,
what has it
sort
been
of,
like for you to listen to Ms. Heard's testimony at
released.
this trial?
And she
I'm
goes
sorry,
for a
what?
domestic
What has
violence
it been like for you
TRO.
to listen to Ms. Heard's testimony at this trial?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Oh, overruled.
Insane. It's insane to hear heinous accusations of violence, sexual violence, that she's attributed to me, that she's accused me of. I don't think anyone enjoys having to split themselves open and tell the truth. But there are times when one just simply has to, because it's gotten out of control. Horrible. Ridiculous, humiliating, ludicrous, painful, savage, unimaginably brutal, cruel, and all.
I'm glad you
Oh.
got rained out too, Charlie. I'm glad
Awful.
you're here.
I wanted I no human being is perfect, certainly not. None of us. But I have never in my life committed sexual battery, physical abuse, all these outlandish, outrageous stories of me committing these things and living with it for 6 years and waiting to be able to bring the truth out. So this is not easy for any of us. I know that. But no matter what happens, I did get here and I did tell the truth, and I have spoken up for what I've been carrying on my back reluctantly for 6 years.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right. Did you want to take lunch at this point, or okay? All right, let's do that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take lunch at this time. Do not discuss this case with anybody, and don't do any outside research. Okay? Thank you.
Wow. Good for you, Johnny. Good for you. I was worried
And
that
don't
you
break
were
anything on
gonna.
your way out.
I was worried that he was gonna forget to. Yes, coolest reviews. Very
All
covert.
right. So just a reminder that since you are back on the stand, do not discuss this case with anybody, to include your attorneys at this point, okay? If you could just have a seat back there. We do have some other issues to take care of. Before we take care of the third-party motion, could I have attorneys come forward on our,
Okay. So what I'm really proud of Johnny Depp and impressed with his testimony there. I think he rebutted the things that he needed to rebut. I think that it was very important for him to express how he feels about hearing the allegations against him, but most importantly, that they are not true. And I was a little bit worried as he started out there that he wasn't going to get to that very important element, that they are not true. Right. And by saying that, let me just give you a little caveat. I personally believe that they are not true. Right. But even if I was on the fence, I would want to hear him say that they were not true. I think you would expect that. And I was a little bit worried that he wasn't going to get there. Right. And I think the jury, needs to hear that. If they're not true, they need to hear from Johnny Depp that they were hard to hear, to listen to stories that were told about him were hard to hear, to have to talk about his personal, private, deep, dark struggles was hard for him to do in front of the whole world, because it is in front of the whole world at this point. More people are watching this trial than are watching any other type of news worldwide, including the virus, including anything else in the world, period. So to have to open yourself up that way and lay your sins bare is difficult. And I think he did an excellent job. I think that what we are witnessing, in my opinion, from Amber Heard's side at this point is nothing short of scrambling. They're trying anything and everything. They're grasping at straws at this point, because I think they would are concerned, and they should be, that they did not do enough to, number one, because this is, I would suspect, how they are going to be paid. So if Amber Heard were to win her countersuit, they would be paid from whatever damages the jury would award to Amber Heard. And, whenever you, I would think, end your case, your case in chief, even up until this point with the rebuttal witnesses, and knowing that they do have a small amount of time for a rebuttal witness or two, right? Every attorney that I've ever seen be interviewed after they've presented their case is always worried about, did I do enough? But I think in this case, their fear and worry of did they do enough is justified and earned, because in my opinion, they didn't do enough. They did not do enough to prove and connect Adam Waldman's statements to Johnny Depp. They just didn't. And the thing is, what I find interesting about the Waldman statements is when they occurred, which is 2018, which would be 2 years after allegations made by Amber had first emerged. We had the TRO first, and then other things, the article in People, et cetera, et cetera. So if Johnny Depp had wanted to use Waldman as his agent to speak to the press in any form or fashion, he had why wait until 2018? It just doesn't make sense. And so in that capacity, I feel that they really have, they may have, I mean, that they failed, period. I don't know if any of them are scheduled to testify. Kate Moss did, and she basically got up there and she said, look, here's what happened. It was raining. I was coming down the stairs. I slipped. Johnny helped me up, took me and got me care. And that's all there is to it. He's never been violent towards me, physically or otherwise, period. End of sentence. That's it. She does cement shoes. Amber Heard definitely looks de-stressed and pressed, and she should be. But at the end of the day, I feel like that what I'm seeing from her team at this point is scrambling, because there's no point in reminding the jury that they went to dinner. That was such a waste of precious time. What Elaine should have been focused on, in my opinion, is dismantling and discrediting her rebuttal to Dr. Hughes' testimony, period. And instead, we're back on the whole, do you know the Muffin Man? You know what I mean? We're right back on that whole cycle, which is a big fat waste of time. So, no, I know, Charlie, what you're saying. I don't know who's going to be her rebuttal witnesses. I have no idea. They have a little bit of time. Maybe they should. I don't know who at this point. I don't even know what they could do, to be honest with you, to as a rebuttal witness at all. Frankly, I'm out of suggestions. I just think it's ridiculous. At this point, I honestly don't know if they have a unicorn that they could pull out of their bag of tricks right now that would take away the sting of all the rebuttal, leaving Johnny Depp completely out of it. Let's just take Johnny Depp's rebuttal testimony completely out of the equation. Okay. Let's pretend he's not up there. He's not going to be up there, blah, blah, blah. Right. The states or the states, his team's rebuttal witnesses were so effective, in my opinion, that I don't see a unicorn. I just don't see what they could possibly do at this point to come back from the rebuttal witnesses. I just don't. Yes. So, I mean, I don't know if I do think they're going to cross after this. They have to. Hopefully it'll be very brief, very direct and to the point, and I would keep it to a minimum of 3 very important questions. Whatever they consider to be the most important questions to ask him at this point, I would keep it to the top 3 and be done. That's my only suggestion. They're not finished with direct. They just have a little bit more. So it's going to be a little bit more of Johnny Depp on the stand under direct rebuttal. And then they'll get an opportunity to cross-exam. And then I don't know who they have next. Now, I have heard that Jennifer Howell is supposed to testify, but I can't confirm that. I mean, obviously there's all kinds of scuttlebutt. It happens all the time. And, on the internet on normal days. Not, this is not a normal day, quite frankly. This is not a normal case or trial. It's, so, she already did the what, babe? Maybe I missed something. Did she testify? I feel like I would remember that. Did she? And I missed it? Cripes. Why didn't somebody tell me last night? That was the person that was last night when I said, okay, I'm tired. Of course. Well, now I feel dumb. Like extra dumb. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. All right? Because I got to watch that. So, I don't. Okay, thank you, Sarah. I cannot believe that I didn't. Oh, I feel so stupid. Okay. Well, it is what it is. I have regrets. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to end the live now, right? And because we've been going for almost 4 hours, I have got to do some straightening up. They didn't bring up the letter. I just want to know what she says. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to end the live now, and I'm going to come back on tonight at 8:30, and we're going to watch Jennifer Howell, and then we're going to watch I Don't Give a Rat's Fat Kneecap, who testifies after lunch. I don't care if we're going to watch the rest of today all the way through tonight. That's what we're going to do. That's what I'm scheduling for tonight. So I'm going to be live at 8:30 tonight. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you to the mods. Thank you, chat. You guys are lovely always. And I so enjoy you guys being here. I really do. And I've enjoyed this entire trial with you guys. I really have. We've had some of the best conversations. You guys are the best chat on these YouTube streets, period. Bar none. And so that is what we're going to do tonight. You guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Stay safe out here on these YouTube streets. And I will see you guys tonight at 8:30 Eastern time. So 7:30 Central and 4:30 Pacific, I think. Yes. 5:30? No, it's 3 hours. If I'm 8, yeah, 5:30 Pacific. All right, you guys. I'll see y'all later. Okay, bye. Oh, Vaughn. I'm going to have, maybe we'll do a Saturday nooner or something, catch up. All right. Bye, you guys.